Chapter 70. The strongest of the fourth generation, White Lion, had a love-hate relationship with Yolashanda when he was underage. Everyone had witnessed their courtship, and they had almost parted forever. The two of them did not leave behind any descendants, and it had always been a regret in the hearts of their supporters. Now that they saw that they were getting along so happily, the regret in their hearts gradually disappeared. Yolashanda and White Lion were, of course, special lions. Otherwise, they would not be able to lead this pride to glory. Even in the human world, there were bound to be gains and losses, let alone in the cruel natural world. It seemed that it was impossible to want everything. The two handsome lions generously contributed a video of rolling in bed, which immediately made all the audience change sides. They no longer talked about why the two of them did not find a lioness to mate with. They only felt that the two of them were very suitable together. Both of them were equally handsome and powerful. The white lion was more domineering and ferocious, and its entire body was filled with a wild charm. Alexander, on the other hand, was more gentle and cute. He was a lion that was full of tricks and had many shining points. There were already enough cubs in the pride. Among the 13 cubs, there were 7 male cubs and 6 female cubs. In the future, the male cubs would definitely go out to explore, and the female cubs would stay in the pride. Their cousin was more than a year older than them, and there was probably no chance for them to form an alliance. The male cubs should eventually form an alliance with their cousin. Of course, that was a relatively distant matter, at least 3 years later. Right now, Yolashanda's limbs were sore and weak. He could not help but blame Ao Daisai for doing whatever he wanted when he was in love. He did not even think about the special structure of the cat family and his own talent. After Ao Daisai was satisfied, he fell asleep on a small soil slope. He had not had the chance to bathe during the dry season, and some of the fur on his body was no longer so white, but his face was still so clean and beautiful. The next day, the sun hung high in the sky again. Xiao Qishi woke up and licked his nose, which was a little uncomfortable because of the dry air. He hated this dusty time too much. Last night's entanglement was like an embellishment and sweetness in a tough life. After the sweetness, there was still bitterness. The female lions formed groups and led the cubs to the water source to drink water. Yolashanda, who had nothing to do, followed beside them to protect them. A flying bird on the road or a dove poking its head out became the object of curiosity for the cubs. They were filled with novelty about everything in this world. His good father, Changfeng, also came as a guard. He was the first to arrive at the water's edge. He chased away any possible dangers, such as the snake that was cooling off in the water. Its triangular head indicated that it was most likely a venomous snake, and its venom was fatal. But cats did not seem to be afraid of this long thing. Changfeng just chased it away to make a better place. The little lions squatted in front of the pond, which was still clear, and clumsily drank from it. At this age, if they didn't have the protection of their parents, they might not even survive for 2 days. The cousins that her aunt had given birth to had already become the cubs' playmates after a period of familiarity. The sensible subadult lionesses also instinctively took on the responsibility of taking care of the cubs. They had already learned a lot from their elders, such as being vigilant of their surroundings and immediately informing the adult lions if there was danger. Changfeng was going to go hunting soon, and Yolashanda, the single lion, became the main force to take care of the cubs. After his diligent appearance was updated, he was ridiculed by countless netizens. This scene was very familiar. It was like a single penguin taking care of its babies in the South Pole. As for why Yolashanda did not go hunting, people guessed that it was because he and White Lion had played too much the night before and were tired. Just like that, the originally bitter days were blissful because of the birth of the cub and the affection of the two lions. However, life and death were unpredictable in the grasslands. Not long after, we received news that 2 male lions from Melissa's pride had died. They were also the fathers of my 5th-generation cousins. 2 days ago, they had been defeated by the Northern Alliance and died in battle. The news was very regrettable. Back then, The two lions had a lot of appearances in Melissa's Pride and the Six Lion Alliance. Many people liked these two brave and brotherly lions. They could not believe that they were gone just like that. I can't believe it. Heavens, how sad would Yolashanda be if he knew? When the two lions were recuperating in the Six Lion Alliance, Yolashanda was the one who treated them the best. He would often secretly leave behind a piece of meat for them to eat. Now that I think about it, I can't accept it. It's too sudden. I thought they would shine in other lionesses' pride again. They are really lovable lions. Tears. Shocking. Is it the Northern Alliance again? It's understandable that the lions are aggressive, but the four brothers of Old Saw are a little too cruel. Any lion that clashes with them will die, without a doubt. Their personality is too chilling. That's why they're called wild beasts. Sai, don't be too sad. My condolences. Yolashanda was not supposed to know about this, but when he was napping in the tree, he heard the photographer talking to his colleagues. They were speaking in English. Thankfully, Xiao Qishi found that he could still understand some of it. For example, a few key words: two injured lions, dead. Once Yolashanda, Xiao Qishi's mouth twitched. He already knew about this. His name in this life was still Yolashanda. It seemed that he had formed an indissoluble bond with Yolashanda. Lying on the tree and listening carefully for a long time, Xiao Qishi sorted out the information. It was a piece of news that made him uncomfortable. The two lion brothers who had recuperated in his place had been seriously injured and died by a cruel gang. This gang had also hurt Do and even had a grudge against Do's father. It sounded like the five brothers of Do were born in a well-known alliance. The development of the pride of African lions was a small society. Xiao Qishi knew about this, but he did not have the mind to pay attention to the amount of information that the photographer had unintentionally revealed. This time, it was completely related to him. Damn, the more he listened, the angrier he became. It turned out that these four lions had killed so many lions. His fists were hard. The reason why he had not sought revenge on those enemies was not that Xiao Qishi had forgotten about the hatred. He was just waiting for the right time. When the two sides were about the same strength, they would either die or be injured in a battle. But when the other side was in decline, it would be different. Xiao Qishi had only planned to take care of the pride properly before taking revenge with Ao Daisai. He had not planned to bring the other lions with him. Who knew that the four cruel lions were the culprits who had caused the deaths of the five brothers' lions? Xiao Qishi looked at the five brothers with an extremely pained gaze. It turned out that they had such a past. How could he not take revenge for this blood feud? To put it bluntly, Xiao Qishi felt that even if they were not fighting for their own personal grudges, they were fighting to give the other lions on the grassland a relatively safe environment to live in. Competition was competition, but the other lions also had the right to live. They did not have to fight to the death every time they fought. Along the way, they had fought countless lions, and the victor was almost always decided. They had never harmed a lion's life. About 65 years ago, the number of lions on Earth was 450,000. Only half a century had passed, and now there were only 20,000 left. Regardless of what had happened, the most important thing now was to protect the number of lions and not let it drop any further. Xiao Qishi looked at the little lions that were only a little over a year old. His heart ached, but he was also extremely proud of his decision. Back then, he had saved the five brothers in the wet grass and led them to protect these 10 little lions. Now, he had even given birth to 13 little lions. This was a total of 28 little lions. Yolashanda was very proud. And now, he had to silently say sorry in his heart, because the decision he had made this time was not to increase the number of lions, but to decrease it. The news of the two lions' deaths made even more people wait for the video of Yolashanda's pride. They wanted to see the cute children they had left behind. They were still growing up in the pride under the protection of lions who were not related to them by blood. 4 males and 6 females. They were very healthy and sturdy. Currently, they were at an age where people did not like dogs, but Yolashanda was as patient with them as ever. He would not ignore the children of the other lions just because the cubs were born. He was really very tolerant. Tears blurred my vision. Fortunately, I left behind 10 children before I left. It shouldn't be too bad. They are lucky to be able to meet a friend like the Six Lions Alliance in a life full of ruthless battles. Very lucky indeed. Blessings. Under the photographer's gaze, Xiao Qixi suddenly came down from the tree. At this moment, 10 little lions immediately ran towards him, whimpering and wanting to play with him. Feeling sorry for their Xiao Qixi, he licked them one by one with incomparable gentleness. No wonder the little lions like him so much, the photographer thought. After Xiao Qixi licked the little lions' bodies, he squatted on the ground and stared at the children who had lost their fathers for a while, and then at the little lions who were still drinking milk. They were still young and needed a strong lion to protect them for the time being. Yulashanda suppressed the surging emotions in his heart and did what he had to do now. Perhaps it noticed that something was wrong with its partner's mood. Ao Daisai walked over and rubbed against the little bear, whose eyes seemed to be sad. It seemed to be asking, "Are you unhappy? What's wrong?" Xiao Qixi let out a soft roar and leaned against Ao Daisai to show that he was fine. He was just a little emotional. He was unhappy because of other lions. If Ao Daisai could communicate, Xiao Qixi guessed that he would definitely ask, "Which blind bastard made you unhappy? I'll kill him." Little Bear, who could be said to be the king of imagination, was immediately comforted by Ao Daisai and became happy. He sighed and thought, "When the time comes, I'll definitely let you be the main force. Don't worry, we can't win this fierce battle without you." Father, son, and brothers attack together, damn it. When the 4 little lions grow up a little, they will attack together. Back then, Do and the other brothers had thick manies when they were only 2 years old. Now the cubs and the pride had better food than Do and the others did back then. At least, they had never been hungry since they were young and had developed ahead of time. Therefore, they could wait a little longer. There was no hurry now. When the time came, they would take revenge for all their grudges. Not long after, the long-awaited rainy season quietly arrived one night. The weather was finally cool. That was great. The grassland animals that were about to die of thirst heaved a sigh of relief and looked forward to the surging rain filling the riverbed again. The scene of the river flowing through the dry riverbed was shown on the television. Coupled with the relaxed and low narration, it made people feel joy. The herbivores looked forward to the rich water grass growing quickly because they had to hurry up and reproduce. In the season of abundant food, the cubs would welcome a wave of even wilder growth. At this time, the difference in size between a lion and a lioness would be reflected. The adolescent lions started to not like to play with the female lions anymore. They learned fighting and hunting skills from the adult lions. The female cubs followed their mothers and aunts and became half-helpers. The 13 cubs who were still drinking milk also safely survived this dry season and welcomed their first rainy season since they were born. The rain was unfamiliar and fresh. The female lions enjoyed the coolness to their heart's content, while the cubs hid and slowly adapted to the feeling of their fur being wet by the rain. Because they were not used to it, they kept shaking their claws and ears. Their eyes were round and revealed a shock of being offended by the rain. They were so cute. Little Bear Joe could squat at the side and watch such a scene for a day. As for Little Bear Joe, he looked at the cubs foolishly. Ao Daisai could also turn a blind eye to it for a day. As long as the other party was willing to climb the small slope with him every few days, he was actually very easy to coax. Spring finally returned to the land. The flowers and butterflies came uninvited. The rich water grass caused the prey in the territory to be in groups. The lions did not have to run far to hunt anymore. There were now 40 to 50 big and small lions going out to hunt together. The division of labor was still the same as before. The lions were in a team, the lionesses were in a team, and the logistics children were in a team. Xiao Qixi had not been to the front line for many months because the cubs liked him too much. They followed him wherever he went. The photographers took advantage of the terrifying fighting power of the pride to hunt in the distance. Only then did they dare to approach this spectacular kindergarten and take many precious close-up shots. There were even cubs who climbed onto his arm and showed great curiosity towards their cameras. "Thank you, Yulashanda, who only watched from the side and did not bare his teeth or roar at them. Needless to say, that calm and confident look was especially stylish. Photographer A. Oh my God, the cubs have climbed onto my hat and are biting it. Photographer B. Don't move, this is a gift. Photographer A. Help me take a photo. Carrot, carrot. Yeah, photographer B. I'm taking a photo. I'm taking a photo. The cubs are so cute. Thank you again, Yolashanda. With Yolashanda taking care of the cubs, the humans frantically pressed the shutter to take many close-up shots of the cubs. After this set of photos was sent out, it was loved and collected by countless people. Of course, Xiao Qishi allowed them to take photos as souvenirs. The life of a lion was too short. It would be good if they could leave photos and videos and live in people's memories forever. For example, he should take a few more photos of himself, who was so handsome and cute. Under the setting sun, Yolashanda and the cubs were happily playing with the semi-self-help photo machine. Although he could not see these photos, what did it matter? Photographer, we are tool men. After playing for more than an hour, they went out to hunt. On the way back, Yolashanda roared at the photographers, reminding them to evacuate quickly and stop playing with the cubs. The cubs' parents were back. Suddenly frightened by the loud voice, the photographer thought that Yolashanda had turned hostile. Only when he got in the car did he realize that the other lions had returned with a murderous aura. Scary. The two teams brought back prey with a considerable amount of meat. When they gathered to eat, the images taken by the aerial camera were very shocking. They were really a big family. The 6 lions maintained the habit of eating at the same table. Only the cubs stayed with them. The lionesses seemed helpless about this. They summoned their children many times, but to no avail. Their little lions are all alive and well. The lions are benevolent, and the lionesses are fierce. How can they not be good? The other lions should learn from them and greatly increase their survival rate. I can't learn unless I ask Yolashanda to teach them. But I think the white lion will curse in public, haha. Happy rainy season, happy grassland life. The survival rate of the cubs in Yolashanda's pride seemed to have created a legend. This made the lions, who saw their children end up in the hyenas' stomachs, feel terrible. Besides being criticized and compared by humans, they were also chased and beaten by angry lionesses. How could they not beat the cubs when they lost their children? The unlucky lions were beaten up and chased after the hyenas. They were only allowed to come back to eat after taking revenge. Well, this was a real incident that happened in their neighbor's house. When Xiao Qishi and her companions were patrolling the borders of their territory, the 4 lions awkwardly watched 3 lionesses chase after a young lion. Usually, the reason why lionesses were angry and chased after them was because they had an affair and lost their children. They just didn't know what kind of thing this old man had done to anger them. They watched the battle with great interest for a while before continuing to patrol the territory. Unlike other greedy lions, Yolashanda's pride was very satisfied with their current territory. They didn't want to expand their territory, nor did they want to invade other lionesses' prides. That was because they already had enough lionesses. The 4 brothers couldn't deal with any of them if they were lazy. Unless they had a heaven-defying talent like Ao Daisai, then they had the capital to marry a few more wives. Xiao Qishi, even I don't have it. How can these brats have it? You're thinking too much. The neighboring lionesses and lions who were chasing and fighting stopped because of the 4 lions passing by. The young lion that could not even defeat the lionesses was afraid and did not dare to make sound. The 3 strong lionesses stared with their eyes wide open. Their expressions seemed to say, "Huh? There's such a handsome lion on the grassland?" Looking at the 4 lions and then looking at the one beside them, they could tell who was better. In order to give birth to stronger offspring, the lionesses seemed to have decided to approach the 4 handsome males patrolling their territory. This action must have angered the male lion with them. However, this male lion was now standing at the bottom of the food chain. Other than sulking, there was nothing he could do. Ao Daisai was the first to discover that there were lionesses following them. As natural wild animals, Ao Daisai should know what the 3 lionesses were up to. He blinked, not interested. However, he didn't seem to want to disturb his brother's romantic encounter. Hence, he cleverly bit Yulashanda's ear and dragged her away first. Most of the times when lions cheated on each other happened when they were patrolling their territory. This was an excellent opportunity to have a romantic encounter. For example, now they had enough time to have sex, and this sex was very likely to make the other party pregnant. Xiao Qixi, who was being pulled by her boyfriend by the ear, turned around and understood Ao Daisai's intention. He wanted to walk to the front and avoid the three lionesses, but he didn't care about his brothers. The other party wasn't encouraging Qing Shuang and a Yuanzi to cheat. He probably just didn't want to get involved in this group of lions and lionesses. But how could this be? Their pride was a good lion with a good family background. How could they cheat? However, Xiao Qixi felt that since the child she brought up took after her, he shouldn't be a bad lion. At this moment, the Yuanzi and Qing Shuang also noticed the situation. The three unfamiliar lionesses were quite good-looking. Faced with the lioness's seductive cries and enchanting figures, the Yuanzi and Qing Shuang were at a loss for a moment. They didn't seem to have any experience in dealing with such a situation. Seeing that they had stopped and hesitated, Xiao Qixi was about to explode in anger. She immediately shouted at them, "What are you looking at? Hurry up and leave. What's there to look at? Don't you have any at home?" The sensible head of the family, Yulashanda, circled behind the two perverted lions and urged them to leave fiercely. "Look at how I'll dig your balls out. How can I face my wife and children? My wife is still breastfeeding." The Yuanzi and Qing Shuang were wronged. They just didn't know how to deal with it and didn't want to cheat. After being roared at by Yulashanda, the two lions jumped forward dejectedly. They didn't care anymore. When Ao Daisai realized that the little bear had ruined his brother's romantic encounter, he seemed to have understood that the other party didn't want this to happen. Hence, he followed the other party's wishes and opened his mouth to scare the three lionesses away. This was a piece of cake for him. The lionesses in the territory naturally had no way of knowing about this. They couldn't stop the lion from cheating, but they couldn't bring back the other lionesses and children. This was the bottom line. The author has something to say. If a lion on the grassland cheats and brings back the lionesses and children, he will be beaten up by the original lionesses. This is similar to humans. Besides touching the two dead lions, they were also 8 to 9 years old. They were in the late stage of their peak. Usually, they would live to 10 to 12 years old in the wild. Leaving the children behind was the greatest fortune. He would avenge them. Chapter 71. The three good-looking neighboring female lions did not succeed in coming into contact with the strong lion they met by chance. Instead, they were chased away by the fierce white lion. It was not their fault for not working hard. It was mainly because they met a group of lions with a sense of morality. Furthermore, there were two male lions among them. The atmosphere was a little strange because of the unfamiliar opposite sex. It was only when they passed by a familiar place and encountered a familiar giraffe that it became normal. It was time for them to sigh and drool again. They wanted to eat, but they could not. Xiao Qixi felt that she was a bad person. In her distant memory, she remembered that she was once a kind-hearted young man who could not even bear to eat a seal. But now, when she met other animals, her first reaction was whether they were tasty or not. Indeed, that famous saying was right. People would eventually live in the way they hated the most. "Ciao, little bear. I've changed. I admit, I really want to eat deer." Ao Daisai, the Yuanzi, and Qing Shuang also wanted to. Everyone licked their lips, and their eyes lit up. However, there was still enough food. They had just eaten before coming out to patrol. Unless they had no choice, they really did not want to take the risk of catching giraffes to eat. Roar! Even if they did not eat giraffes, they were still greedy. "Let's have something else, more or less." Yulashanda cried out and acted coquettishly to her boyfriend, Ao Daisai. It was rare for him to patrol with Ao Daisai, so he felt uneasy. There were 40 to 50 mouths in the pride. It was a very luxurious thing to eat until one was full. In fact, ever since the number of family members increased, Xiao Qixi had forgotten what it felt like to burp. Pitiful. However, would Ao Daisai, who was used to hunting regularly, fulfill his wish? Xiao Qixi decided that if Otis did not do anything, she would give herself some special treatment. At the same time, Big Yuanzi and Qing Shuang would also benefit from it. Of course, Ao Daisai would satisfy his partner's needs. When his partner acted coquettishly and asked him for food, his night vision was very good. He immediately narrowed his eyes and looked around. At the same time, he used his sensitive sense of smell to search for prey. Through his actions, his companions quickly learned of his next actions. After a while, this white lion left the team to hunt alone. The other members looked at his back and chose to continue patrolling. The prey nearby was a small antelope, so there was no need for the two lions to work together. Therefore, Xiao Qixi did not follow and help. He believed in Ao Daisai's ability. The three lions patrolled together. Xiao Qixi picked up the topic that she hadn't made clear just now and nagged at the two lions who couldn't withstand the test. Ow, ow. In the future, when you see other lionesses, take a detour, understand? If you dare to cheat on me, I'll tell your wives and let them beat you until your heads are full of bumps. Seeing that the beautiful lioness had been taught a lesson, the two big lions walked with their heads lowered. Their eyebrows drooped, and they did not say anything. The more Xiao Qixi spoke, the more satisfied she became. Was this the joy of reprimanding other lions? He felt that he could talk for an entire night. However, Ao Daisai soon returned with their prey, interrupting Xiao Qixi's attack. Now, no one cared about anything else. All they could see was the food. At the edge of the bushes, baboons cried out strangely in the trees. However, the lions did not take them seriously. Even if they despised the baboons for being noisy and their ears kept shaking, they still ate under their noses, angering them to death. Under her boyfriend's feeding, Yulashanda finally had a full meal. She tasted the fullness that she had not felt in a long time. She was so satisfied. Usually, he liked to let the other lions in the pride wait to be fed and did not want to eat more. After all, he was not the thinnest in the pride. The thinnest lions were the last batch of lions to eat every day. Even if their pride was already quite fair to all the members, this was a deep-rooted mechanism of the pride and a natural phenomenon. As strong as Ao Daisai was, if he felt hungry, he could catch prey anytime and anywhere to fill his stomach. Many lions with average talent naturally did not have the strength to survive alone. However, Xiao Qixi felt that talent or genes could not determine everything. Whether a lion was strong or not was closely related to its nurturing. He thought a little arrogantly. If other lions were to teach the 5 brothers, would they still be so strong when they grew up? Definitely not. Just like the 4 subadult brothers now, they had grown up in this pride with a good atmosphere. Currently, they were already outstanding and had extraordinary abilities. Xiao Qixi burped in satisfaction and went back to sleep with Ao Daisai. The cubs who liked him very much wanted to come over to play, but they were scared away by Ao Daisai, leaving only the 2 of them, one yellow and one white, around him. Yulashanda, who had eaten others' food, thought that his was going to bloom again and was ready to cry. However, Ao Daisai only hugged him to sleep and did not do anything unsuitable for children. He chased away the cubs purely because he wanted to monopolize him. Xiao Qixi smiled in his heart and kissed his partner's face. Good night, Ao Daisai. I'm so sleepy. Good night to everyone on the grassland, too. The next time they went out to hunt, a few adult lions brought along a very strong subadult lion cub and ran on the green grassland, chasing after a fleeing wildebeest with all their might. Yulashanda ran at the front, followed by a string of cubs. At the side was Ao Daisai and his brothers. This was not a real hunting operation. If that wildebeest had any room to run, it would have died long ago. Now, they were only teaching the little lions how to choose and chase prey correctly. Knocking on a blackboard was a very important part, and they were not allowed to wander off. Ao Daisai, who was originally lazy, realized that a little lion had run off. He seemed to be a little angry and chased the other party back. His sharp eyes seemed to be saying, "What's wrong with you? Can you be more serious?" All the cubs in the pride were as obedient as kittens in front of Ao Daisai. At this moment, the little lion shrank its neck and roared softly before trying its best to chase after its prey. Yolashanda was not so strict. He tirelessly demonstrated over and over again so that the little lions could see clearly how he hunted. One had to know that some of the killing techniques that he had summed up himself were not known by other lions. Only the lions in their pride knew. It could be said to be a family heirloom, a unique secret manual. Yolashanda chuckled in his heart. This would be the greatest honor for the little lions in the future. Charge, little ones. Chow chi. I'll chase left. I'll chase right, children. Watch carefully. The effect of biting from this angle is superb. But we're just demonstrating now. Don't bite first, chase later. The wildebeest that had been chased by their family was so tired that it was about to foam at the mouth. Wildebeest, I thank your whole family. Since you don't want to kill me, can you change to another wildebeest? Of course, the lion family wanted to kill it, but now was not the time. When the little lions could not run anymore, they stopped one by one, panting, teaching Material thought that he had escaped a calamity and ran away happily. Unexpectedly, a white lion rushed out and ended his happiness in less than 10 minutes. Uncle White Lion's clean and neat hunting performance stunned the little lions. Perhaps in their hearts, they also yearned to become such a strong lion. This plump seed was deeply rooted in the hearts of the little lions from today onwards. Perhaps it would grow into a towering tree in the near future. People discovered an interesting phenomenon in zoos. When a lion and a dog grew up together, the lion would think that he was in the shape of a dog and would appear less confident. On the other hand, the dog would think that he was in the shape of a lion. Thus, he was fierce and even dared to fight against a black bear alone. Did this mean that the influence between companions was very important? Xiao Qixi felt that it was definitely so. To give an example that he had personally experienced, when he took the postgraduate entrance examination in university, 3 of his 4 roommates were preparing to take the postgraduate entrance examination. The other one did not have such plans, but under the influence of the 3 of them, this student also took the postgraduate entrance examination. Therefore, the environment and companions were especially important factors for the growth of the little lions. The 4 subadult lions lived beside a group of valiant lion uncles every day, so they were destined to not be mediocre. The video of Yolashanda and the 5 Norman brothers carefully teaching their friend's son touched the fans of the 2 deceased lions. That was great. The 6 lions treated them as their own and were not stingy with their teaching. The fans admired the 6 lions from the bottom of their hearts, and they never expected that one day in the near future, Yolashanda would make such a decision. The very excited followers were now guarding the official titles of the 2 prides every day, watching the lives of the lions over and over again. They were mainly paying attention to the growth of the younger generation, because the 6 lions were undoubtedly already very strong. Although they did not fight in all directions to expand their territory, they had unified this land that was constantly in chaos. They had also combined with the most valiant legendary lionesses on the grassland, causing the number of members of the pride to reach an unprecedented peak. They were already quite impressive. Also, the survival rate of the little lions was enough to be recorded in history. Now, people were worried about the next generation. Whether they could protect the glory of their parents seemed to be a problem that all rising lions faced. In the fierce competition on the grassland, there was no alliance that could always be all-powerful and prosper forever. Most of them could only last for about 3 generations. And every few years, there would be an inconspicuous small alliance that would raise a legendary lion that would make people's eyes light up. It could be considered to have brought honor to their ancestors. The fathers of the 4 little lions who had lost their fathers came from an inconspicuous small alliance. It was already unexpected that they could give birth to children through their own efforts and lionesses with excellent genes. If their sons could shine, it would definitely be a blessing in disguise. The happy and fulfilling rainy season slowly passed as the big lion and the little lion interacted with each other lovingly. Although survival was tough, who could say that they did not have a moment of happiness? Of course there were. There are many such moments. The atmosphere in the video of the Yolashanda Pride during this period was so relaxed and healed, full of laughter. The four little lions who had slowly grown manies were like four followers. They followed behind the big lion every day and worked very hard to participate in hunting and fighting. What was worth mentioning was that their tempers and personalities were the same as those of uncles with different surnames. When the fans dug out videos of their fathers and compared them, they did not look like their biological fathers. After all the lions were brought up by Yolashanda. If one were to say who was most affected by Yolashanda, of course, it would be Yolashanda. It was undeniable that some of their occasional behaviors were especially strange. Many details were completely different from the other lions, but it was undeniable that they were very strong and had a lot of personality. Every time they saw them move out in groups, the audience would shout excitedly, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They could not hold back their high spirits. Just think about it. 10 lions were mighty and mighty. Just the ostentation alone was enough to shock people. Not to mention that they liked to line up and walk side by side. Was there a need to describe the scene and momentum? It was simply too convenient for the photographers who were following them in the field. Okay? Photographer, I scream every day, thank you. The audience watching the video was also very tired from shouting, especially the first, second, third, and fifth generation fans. They had followed them for 5 generations. What kind of concept was this? They might be in a hospital with intravenous drips and using their mobile phones to watch African lions. The nurse occasionally heard an old man with a painted arm suddenly stand up and shout in an old voice, "Forever Norman Alliance, I love you." She did not find it strange. She just thought that this might be a team that the old man loved. As for whether it was basketball, football, or even rugby, she did not know. Of course, the nurse knew that if she was willing to go up and ask, the old man would be very willing to tell her a long story. When she was free and had enough time to listen to the heart of an old man, she was more than willing to do so. These 10 lions are too strong. The older ones are at their peak, and the younger ones have a mane at only 2 years old. My blood is boiling every day when I watch them. I can't wait for them to head north and fight the lions of the Northern Alliance. Right now, the Yolashanda lions are the only lions in all the alliances that could defeat the Northern Alliance. However, they have always been defensive in nature. There is no way they will attack another pride of lions of their own accord. Old Sa and his brothers are over 9 years old this year. Logically speaking, they should be at the late stage of their peak, but they are too strong. This year, they have flattened a couple of small alliances and killed many lions who had just come out to make a name for themselves. Holy shit, demons. What a cruel personality. 10 lions, go kill these executioners. Those who hope that the 6 lions will take revenge can forget about it. Yolashanda is a peaceful leader, and he will not step out of his territory to fight even if he dies. Rest up, you guys. White Lion's temper is not bad. He will definitely fight to the death if he gets a chance. Unfortunately, he also looks like he listens to Yolashanda. If only he was the leader. Is it a tradition for lions to be afraid of their wives? Although the 4 demon brothers will die sooner or later, the 5th generation and the 4 little ones missed the chance to avenge their fathers. We're still upset. I am an old fan, but I know that safety is a blessing. Sigh. The 4 demon brothers will die sooner or later. I just feel bad when I think about how many lions they will kill before they die. Some people who hoped that the 6 Lions Alliance would take action also went with this in mind. Revenge was more important than safety. But if Yolashanda dared to rise up and kill the Northern Alliance, they would kneel down and watch the video. Of course Yolashanda dared to rise up. He had been sharpening his claws and the lion cub's claws for the entire rainy season. Yes, he had changed his mind. At the beginning, he didn't want to take the other lions with him for revenge. But times were different. He had to take all the lions with him to eat the meat of those 4 demon lions. It was a normal morning, and the lion pride territory was very quiet. Only a small number of energetic lion cubs were jumping around and playing. Yolashanda was petting a lion cub who was asking for a hug. They played intimately like a real father and son, but this lion, it seemed to be Purple Lightning's child. It didn't seem like their proud father who liked to act coquettishly. Xiao Qixi calmly petted the little fur ball. Go back and find Mommy. We'll play with you when we come back. As for himself, he got up and stretched lazily. Roar. It's getting late. Everyone, it's time to go. The photographers saw that as Alexander roared, all the lions quickly stood up and left with him with sleepy faces. The photographers thought that they were going out to hunt, but only after following them did they realize that they had actually stepped out of the territory. A guess appeared in their minds. At this moment, the atmosphere in the team was unusually heavy. The other team of cameramen who stayed in the territory saw the lionesses standing on a small slope and watching the lions leave. Leader Lena, who was already in her twilight years, had a determined look in her eyes. It was as if she was saying, "We will protect the children." This was the neatest and most silent trip they had ever taken. Xiao Qixi led the way with her sharp sense of smell. Ao Daisai walked beside her with a calm expression, as if they were out hunting. The 4 Norman brothers were scattered around the team, and the 4 little ones, who had just turned 2 years old, walked in the middle. This was an invincible team. Their eyes were cold, and their momentum was fierce. Even if the cameraman in front of the camera knew that their killing intent wasn't directed at them, they still felt goosebumps all over their bodies. Even their fingers that were holding the camera were a little stiff. Their palms were sweating uncontrollably. They were so excited. If things were as expected, they were about to witness a battle of the century. Could 10 gathered lions end the rule of the 4 demon brothers over the grassland for 6 years? The 2 sides hadn't even started fighting yet, and the whole world already knew what they were going to do. Everyone was asking, is this news reliable? Is it true? Yilashanda really led 9 lions to attack the Northern Alliance? Someone in the know answered without hesitation. Yes, they are on the path of revenge. On the path of revenge. Revenge? Who? That was a lot. First of all, they had to avenge the brothers' parents, uncles, and aunts. Oh, that wasn't all. Only 5 of them were left. Then, they had to avenge the 4 little ones' father and uncle. Yilashanda had almost killed his true love. Every single one of the 10 lions here had a blood feud with the Northern Alliance. On the other hand, the humans had to avenge the deaths of their faith and love. The people who had been paying attention to the birth and death of these lions for so many years instantly crumbled. No one thought that something like this would happen on the grasslands. The calm Yilashanda actually made a decision that exceeded everyone's expectations. For a time, no one knew what to say. But one thing was for sure. They were all praying and wishing him unconditionally. We must win. Even if we don't win, we must return safely, people thought. What are those people who said they were worried thinking? Yilashanda won because he took this step. There was no suspense at all. Okay? Yes. At this moment, many drones and land-based photographers were filming the entire process on the grasslands. It was a long process because the territories of both sides were quite far away. The lions were hungry halfway through the journey, so they decided to catch a zebra in the other side's territory and eat until they were full. The lions who had gathered to eat were no longer as aggressive as before. They were completely immersed in the delicious zebra meat and enjoying it. Photographer, you're not just here to eat a zebra today. It's going to be hard to explain. Photographer B, the whole world knows that you're here to fight. If you don't fight hard, you won't be able to end this. Clearly, Yilashanda had his own ideas. He wasn't in a hurry to move forward. They were already in the other side's territory, so they weren't in a hurry to find the other side. The most important thing right now was to eat and drink enough to maintain their strength. Xiao Qixi, the lion cubs are weaker, and they should be tired after walking for so long. Isn't it better to eat, drink, and sleep? Photographer, no, you're the one who's tired. After following him for so many years, every team member knew that Yilashanda was the most lazy and hardworking person. If it wasn't necessary, Yilashanda was too lazy to produce juice. If the man needed it, Yilashanda was the most hardworking person. It was this combination of contradictions that made White Lion fall head over heels in love with him. The other lions, we like it too. It was just that Doe was too fierce. No lion dared to poach Doe's corner. The official organization that live-streamed them looking for trouble was very helpless. It seemed like the answer could only be revealed tomorrow. However, the audience expressed that even the prelude was very exciting. They enjoyed watching the lions sleep and snoring. Seeing them sleeping so soundly, I actually feel very satisfied. That's because they have enough energy after sleeping. When they bite and kill those crazy demon lions, the damage will increase exponentially. Yolashanda and White Lion's relationship is so good. When they go out to fight, they hug each other tightly and sleep. I'm so jealous. I came to watch the battle, but I ended up eating a mouthful of dog food. The person who eats their dog food every day secretly raises a paw. Actually, I'm a little afraid that something bad will happen to the little lion. But the revenge of the father should come. 6 big lions with no record of defeat are here. Everyone, don't be afraid. The uncles will protect them. Have you seen the updates from the lionesses? They're also patrolling vigilantly. This feeling of working together is so good. Charge, Yolashanda. You'll definitely win. After there were no lions guarding the territory, the lionesses sent out strong lionesses to patrol after sunset to prevent strange lions from sneaking up on them. This was so that they could inform the pride as soon as possible when there was a situation. However, there was no need to worry too much. Yolashanda and the rest had accumulated power in this territory for so long. Everyone within 100 miles knew that this was their territory. Usually, no wandering lions dared to approach. On this night, there was no killing or death on the grassland. It was unexpectedly calm. Even the baboons on the trees did not like to cry. The 10 foreign lions in the territories of the other prides slept soundly. When the golden light appeared in the sky, the morning wind blew the brown fur on their heads and blew away their sleepiness. A group of lions got up and yawned. They continued to walk forward domineeringly with their heads held high. The author has something to say. I've revised it. I'm sorry for causing trouble for everyone. I'll give everyone a red packet today as long as you leave a message. Chapter 72. Did the 4 brothers of the Northern Alliance know that a great disaster was about to befall them? The answer was that they didn't know for now. Normal lions didn't have a keen sense of smell, and the Northern Alliance's territory was too vast for the 4 brothers to patrol every day. However, they soon found out. It was because a provocative lion roar came from the distance. Each roar was louder than the last, and it was filled with intimidation and contempt. This meant that the enemy had stepped into their territory. The 4 brothers were a group of warlike lions. Even if other lions didn't provoke them, they would still invade other lion groups. How could they tolerate a lion behaving atrociously in their territory? The anger of the 9-year-old lions that were still strong and burly were provoked. They gathered together and ran toward the direction of the invaders' roar. However, they were still a little afraid of the enemy. Big Unzi's penetrating roar reminded them of the only time in their lives when they ran away with their tails between their legs. That time, they were surrounded by more than 20 lions in an unfamiliar place. In the end, they chose to run away. But this time, they were in their own territory. There was no way they could run away. The 2 groups of aggressive lions ran toward the location of the final battle. The magnificent scene made the cameraman's blood boil. The spectators who were waiting for the live stream could no longer stay calm. It was early in the morning, but they were even more serious than usual. A tycoon waved his hand and threw out a large amount of rewards. Grassland Guard Squad charge. Kill the 4 Executioner brothers. Return peace to the grassland. Another tycoon followed up. This number doesn't count as a squad. It should be the Avenging Lions Alliance. Avenge the 87 lions that died in the past 6 years. God, you're awesome. I can't believe you have accurate statistics. Fuck, 87 lions. My fists are strong. The Norman Alliance alone has contracted a dozen or so lions. Revenge, revenge, revenge. The horn of the charge was loud and powerful. The off-road vehicle flew across the grassland and caught up with the angry lions. However, lions weren't used to running for long distances. When Xiao Qishi knew that the enemy was also charging toward them, he told everyone to wait in place. The terrain here was good. It was flat and vast. It was very suitable for a battlefield. It was also convenient for the cameraman. He didn't have to carry his camera into the forest. Xiao Qishi was very happy that this battle to rid the lion of evil was recorded. He did not feel guilty at all for invading his opponent's territory. There was no need for him to feel guilty for killing 4 vicious villains. After they stopped running, the 10 lions stayed where they were and waited for their body temperature to drop. This moment was the calm before the storm. They stayed motionless in the grass and waited for the enemy to arrive. Their serious attitude made people think that they were intelligent. This was very different from his irritable and violent opponent. For strong northern lions rushed out of the bushes. They were 4 very strong lions, and just the killing intent on their bodies was very terrifying. When they arrived at the battlefield chosen by Xiao Qishi, the 2 sides began to roar. The voice of the home lion was filled with deterrence and anger, as if it was warning and chasing them away. As for the away team, the lions sent out a few representatives, and their shouts immediately drowned out their opponents. The cameraman who followed the lion of the northern region had seen countless battles, but he had never seen a battle like this. The ferocious and overbearing lion of the northern region did not fight directly, but chose to intimidate. It seemed that the 10 lions opposite them were giving them a lot of pressure. Then, did the lions of the northern region dare to fight? Of course. They did not take the 4 subadult lions into account at all. They seemed to only be afraid of the 6 adult lions. The old generals, who were smart, powerful, and experienced, walked slowly in front of this group of invaders while intimidating them. They observed them with shrewd eyes and understood them. The Avengers who were fighting in the away team were also choosing their opponents. This had to be arranged. Xiao Qishi and the fierce big Yuanzi were duty-bound to take over the other party's boss. This was the #1 demon in people's hearts and was not easy to deal with. The white lion went forward and pried Xiao Qishi's position, pushing Xiao Qishi to the next position. It seemed that he felt that he was the only one who had confidence in fighting this leading lion. Xiao Qishi did not fight with the other party. He obediently stood beside the 4th son, Qing Shuang, and took over the second opponent. In addition, Purple Lightning and the second son, Cheng Feng, were each in charge of one, and the 4 subadult lions assisted them. In the blink of an eye, the 10 lions seemed to have quietly stared at their opponents. Their positions and arrangements made the people in the live stream cry out in their hearts. Too handsome. The lions could actually observe the strength of their opponents. They were impeccable in terms of combat strength arrangements. The lions who had been crowned with the title of Avengers slowly approached the target of their revenge. Their firm and tense muscles jumped on their bodies. The heated atmosphere reached its peak with the low roars of the lions. Roar! Roar! No one knew who made the first move, but in that instant, the 14 lions on the grass all began to fight with each other. Dust immediately flew around, and it was chaos. Not only did the lions' adrenaline surge, but the audience in the live stream was also ignited. Cheers and rewards for the lions flooded the screen. On the screen, the lions of the 6 Lions Alliance were trying their best to entangle their opponents, not giving them a chance to gather with their brothers. They wanted their opponents to have worries, but they, who had the advantage in numbers, did not have such worries. They only cared about attacking. Attack! Attack! Old Sa, who had been fighting for many years, should be very clear about the power of unity. He seemed to have been trying to join forces with his brothers to fight the enemy, but the white lion fighting with him was too strong, whether it was combat skills or strength. Ao Daisai opened its sharp and slender fangs and pounced on the other party with a strong body that weighed 700 kilograms. This attack was accompanied by a furious roar, and the cameraman who was recording the sound felt pain in his eardrums. Compared to the young lion's white fangs, Old Sa's fangs were already yellow, but his combat strength was still not to be underestimated. In this head-on collision with the white lion, no one benefited. The evenly matched battle made people tremble with fear. Xiao Qixi, who had their own opponents, did not dare to be distracted and turned their heads to look even though they heard the deafening sounds of the battle beside them. This was because they also found it very strenuous. Although the opponent's second brother was not as strong as his eldest brother, he was also known as a killer. He had a strong and agile physique and attacked them fiercely as soon as he came up. With such strong combat strength, it was no wonder that he could kill so many lions on the grassland. But so what if he had strong combat strength? They just wanted to crush these 4 lions into the ground. Crush them to death. Crush them to death. This is the first time the 6 lions have experienced a life-and-death battle. It can be seen that other than White Lion and Yolashanda, the other lions are not used to it. Little lions, hang in there. F***CK, a little lion was almost bitten. As expected of the strongest on the grassland, they are still so fierce even when surrounded. As support, the subadult lions did not retreat at all in the face of strong and ferocious opponents. Even though they were almost bitten in the neck, they still rushed forward and fought with their uncles to the end. So if they don't die now, how many more lions will die? The seemingly calm message was filled with helplessness. Xiao Qixi knew that it was not a good idea to drag it out. They had to break through the defense. To kill a lion, it was a blow to the opponent's confidence, but it was also possible to stimulate the opponent's desire to fight. Yolashanda took a desperate stance and attracted most of the opponent's firepower to himself. When they could not leave immediately, it was inevitable that one of them would bite the other. No matter who bit the other, Qing Shuang had a chance to use his skills now. Their group was the first to welcome the white-hot situation. Their opponent fell to the ground, but Yolashanda also fell to the ground. Qing Shuang bit his opponent without any regard for his life, his throat emitting unprecedented fury. The force of his bite and the strength of his head that was stimulated by his anger caused his opponent to let out a miserable roar. At this moment, Yolashanda also broke free and pounced on his opponent who was trying to fight back. Don't even think about it. How would he give his opponent a chance to fight back? This time, he had to take him down. The battle between ferocious beasts was filled with cruelty and blood. They seemed to be very sensitive to pain, so even if they were bleeding nonstop, they would still fight and roar. Xiao Qixi, bullshit, it hurts, it hurts. The moment his shoulder was bitten, he simply wanted to scream like a pig being slaughtered, okay? But at this moment, he did not dare to think about anything else. He only wanted to end the battle. If he wanted to end this 6-year battle, he had to kill the other party. Yolashanda and Qing Shuang's eyes were red. At this moment, there was nothing else but killing. When Xiao Qixi bit his opponent, he hesitated and doubted himself. Was this really the right thing to do? No matter what the reason was, did he really have the right to take away a life? But after hesitating for a second, Xiao Qixi clearly knew that he might not have the right to take away a life, but he definitely had the right to save a life. Just like usual hunting, Yolashanda did not hesitate to squander his powerful strength. Under the watchful eyes of everyone who held their breaths, the second group successfully broke through the defense. The bleeding Yolashanda immediately turned around and pounced toward another group to help. He saved a young lion cub who was in critical condition at the last moment. The fall of a male lion had a huge impact on the situation. First of all, the remaining lions of the Northern Alliance were even more furious and irritable. Their desire to fight soared because their brother's death had stimulated their bloodlust. But they did not know that Yolashanda's bleeding had also stimulated their opponents. Ao Daisai could smell his little bear bleeding. The familiar smell of blood greatly stimulated this strong white lion. He roared back at his opponent with fury, fangs, and claws. It was inevitable that he would hurt his opponent in a fierce battle. In short, the remaining lions on the battlefield were bloodshot. This kind of formation and savagery caused the hearts of the spectators and even those watching through the screen to race. They were so quiet that they did not even dare to look. This was not entertainment. This was a revolution between lions. The infuriated Ao Daisai no longer used a conservative strategy to protect himself. He and the strongest boss of the Northern Alliance went all out and used suicidal attacks to forcefully obtain the result of this battle as quickly as possible. Let's see who will die and who will die. Do's fierce fighting style forced Big UNZ to act as support and wait for an opportunity to strike. The moment his brother fell, Old Sa was stimulated. Yes, he fought back violently, but the Norman brothers did not give him a chance to break out of the encirclement. It was just like when they surrounded the Norman Alliance, killed all the lions, and ate the meat of the lionesses. Ao Daisai and Big UNZ did not care about the consequences and furiously focused their fire. This infamous lion of the grasslands was finally pushed down by them and was met with their crazy biting and killing. Roar! Ao Daisai pressed on top of his opponent's body and roared to show his power, ending this battle. With their boss and second brother falling one after another, the other two were unable to fight back. Their confidence was severely damaged, and in the end, they were unwillingly defeated by the lions that surrounded them and judged. Their final cry resounded across the grasslands, but this time they were no longer as arrogant as before. There is only unwillingness and sorrow. However, no one pitied them. The four lions that liked to plunder and kill had done countless evil things. Today, the 10 lions finally ended their lives that were not worth singing about. When it ended, the first reaction of the people was to let out a long sigh of relief and quickly return to normal breathing. During the entire battle, just now, they had difficulty breathing. It was not because there was a problem with their bodies, but because the scene was so intense and thrilling that they forgot to breathe. Oh my God, I couldn't take my eyes off it just now. It's finally over. I covered my eyes and didn't dare to watch. I'll watch the recording later. This shouldn't be suitable for minors to watch. It's too barbaric and bloody. However, there will always be bloodshed in a revolution. Congratulations, 10 lions. The revolution has won. On the quiet battlefield, the 10 victorious lions were still panting heavily. Their strong abdomens were moving at a high frequency. Clearly, the battle just now had pushed their bodies to their limits. Ao Daisai got up from his opponent's corpse and walked towards his partner immediately. He rubbed his blood-stained head against his injured partner. Roar! The voice he let out at this moment was not as powerful as before. It was hoarse and filled with heartache. Ao Daisai lowered his head and licked his partner's bleeding wound. His blue eyes were filled with melancholy and helplessness, as if he was blaming himself for not taking good care of the other party. Xiao Qishi's first attention was also on the dazzling bloodstains on Ao Daisai's white skin. This was too eye-catching, and his heart twitched when he saw it. He cursed the despicable lion while licking it. The friendship between the members of the Lion Alliance was always like this. They would lick each other's wounds after they were injured, so they did not stand out. The other lions were also doing the same. After a fierce battle, they comforted each other. Some of them were even too tired and lay down on the ground to rest. Cameraman, resting beside your opponent's corpse, as expected of you. The dust of this battle had already settled, and the humans were very curious about what the 10 lions would do next. Would they invade the Northern Alliance's territory? Would they chase away the lionesses and cubs, or kill the cubs? The old fans of the Norman Alliance naturally hoped that the 5 brothers could return to this land. This was the origin of their glory. However, they did not have the final say in this. The humans were looking forward to Ylashanda's arrangement. It seemed that as long as it was his idea, it would be reasonable. After checking Ao Daisai's wound, Xiao Qishi was glad that it was not too serious. This was great. He did not want to have sex with a lion that was covered in scars, because the white lion's wounds were very obvious. He then went to check on the other lions. Purple Lightning and Chengfeng might have more scruples because they were charging with the cubs. Their injuries were the most serious, but it was not a big problem. They could definitely recover. After receiving Ylashanda's consolation, Chengfeng rubbed his head against the pillar in his heart, as if to say that he was fine and was fine. Purple Lightning was not grateful at all. He even tilted his head to avoid Xiao Qishi, as if saying, "Don't touch me, because I will beat you up if you touch me too much." Roar! He was annoyed. Xiao Qishi was speechless. We just want to battle. What's wrong with licking your wounds? Seriously, I even licked you from head to toe when I was young. When Xiao Qishi went to check on the cubs, Purple Lightning's gaze fell on Xiao Qishi's bleeding shoulder. After staring at it for a while, he licked his own wound. Old 3 was afraid of Doe, who was lying on the ground and taking the time to rest. Not only him, all the lions had the same thought. In the natural world, the story of the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind, happened every day. There was no exception just because they were lions. Of course, the intense battle just now had already frightened the surrounding animals into fleeing in all directions. No animals would dare to approach this place in the short term. Xiao Qishi knew that the subadult lion cubs were not seriously injured and had only suffered some mental trauma during the battle. Hence, she comforted them and put her heart at ease. The 10 lions slept until late at night. Countless pairs of green eyes were faintly discernible in the bushes. They might be jackals, wild dogs, or other carnivores. They were attracted by the smell of blood. However, they did not expect so many lions to lie here. Just the number alone could scare them to death. Therefore, they could only keep their saliva and wait for these lions to leave. Yes, many carnivores on the grassland could accept rotten meat. They would not reject even the rotten meat of lions. The 10 exhausted lions rested here for the night. The next morning, they did not miss this fertile territory at all and walked back with injuries. Was Ilishanda really indifferent to this territory? That was not the case. Xiao Qishi was only worried about the safety of the territory and rushed back to guard and recuperate. As for how to divide the territory, he had a plan in his heart. His pride was so big that it was impossible for them to live together forever. They had to rule separately. It was not bad to be neighbors. The 10 lions walked slowly on the road. In the evening, everyone was very hungry, but who would go out to hunt? They looked at the lions lying down to rest, as if they were all hoping that the other party would go out. A bunch of lazy people. Xiao Qishi was also very tired. He lay on the ground calmly and did not move. He felt that it would not be his turn no matter what, because he was the most experienced and the leader. What was the reason for him to go out and hunt? No, the 4 subadult cubs also lay down with a clear conscience. They were the youngest and had never hunted alone. It was impossible for them to go out and hunt. Of the remaining 5 brothers, Purple Lightning and Xingfeng were more seriously injured and were not suitable. The 2 brothers closed their eyes and rested their chins on their claws to sleep. There were only 3 left. They went out bitterly to eat the food of the other 7. Fortunately, they were not unwilling. Taking care of injured brothers was the traditional virtue of their pride. However, what kind of lousy territory was this? Ao Daisai and the others searched for a long time, but did not find a zebra. There were only wild boars and porcupines. Porcupines were the kind that were covered in thorns. The lions could not eat them at all. They could only choose a wild boar. They remembered that when they were young, Xiao Qishi had also caught wild boars for them to eat. They tasted good. The way to Yuanzi and Qing Shuang killed wild boars was in the same vein as Xiao Qishi. After the brothers blinded the wild boar, they created a commotion at the side and let the other party charge around. Ao Daisai squatted at the side and licked his claws. When the wild boar was tired from running, he would go up and kill it in one strike. The wild boar was too fat. It was at least 400 to 500 kilograms. The smart lions emptied the wild boar's stomach and brought back a body. Looking at the wild boar's stomach that no longer had a liver, Xiao Qishi narrowed his eyes at the Yuanzi. Damn it, little brat, you're so sneaky. The Yuanzi licked his bloody mouth with an innocent expression. So what if he ate it? All the livers of the prey had a Yuanzi's name written on them. He did not care. Xiao Qishi was angry, but he had not eaten wild boar meat for a long time. He ate with relish, and his appetite was great. He was very happy that this wild boar did not have much fat. Ao Daisai next door did not change his eating habits and still liked to eat fat as usual. Xiao Qishi happily ate the lean meat and gave the fat meat to the other party. Roar! I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you. Seeing his boyfriend eat his leftover food, He could not help but think of strawberry buttocks and the sharp stalks of strawberries. If there were strawberries to eat, he reckoned that Ao Daisai would be happy to eat his leftover strawberry buttocks, right? Ao Daisai was a carnivore, but he could also eat vegetarian food. Sweet food was fine. After all, he used to be a yellow peach king killer. The 10 lions divided up the wild boar completely. The subadult lions, who were still unsatisfied, held the pig bones and licked them. There were also lions eating brains. Xiao Qixi was not surprised by such a scene. He licked his lips. In fact, he missed the taste of brain and hot pot. The photographer could not take it anymore. These lions had been fighting majestically on the battlefield before, but now they were rolling around on the ground with their brothers for a piece of pig bone. Where was their style? Where was their aura? The 10 lions did not rest after eating their fill. They continued on their way. Some of the foodies were even unwilling to put down the pig's tail and bones. At midnight, the female lions on patrol heard the commotion and immediately became nervous, afraid that an enemy had invaded. But soon, they heard a familiar voice. It turned out that their lions had returned. The two sides met and communicated for a while. The female lions continued their patrol. The wounded lions slowly returned to their territory, a place that they were familiar with and safe. The female lions, who were waiting for their spouses to return, came over to rub against their husbands. The little lions swarmed to Xiao Qixishi's side. They cried out one after another, as if asking him, "Where have you been these 2 days?" Xiao Qishi responded to them gently. His huge lion head swept across the area, as if to say, "Hello, little furries, I missed you so much." After a short and warm meeting, the lions fell asleep. They did not even get up to eat the food that the female lions brought back. It was obvious that they were exhausted. The author has something to say. The revolution is a victory. There will be a happy life in the future. It will not end in a hurry. Don't worry. There were more than 5,000 comments yesterday. You guys are awesome. Chapter 73. That night, the lion's territory was filled with the sound of snoring. Even Xiao Qishi, who usually despised other lions for snoring, started snoring softly without being woken up. They slept soundly for a very long time. When they woke up, they seemed to be fine except for the discomfort of their wounds. The 4 growing male cubs were the first to wake up. They yawned and stretched on the ground. When they realized that there was food in their territory, they quickly got up and started eating. This scene fell into the eyes of the surrounding lionesses, who stared at them without blinking. They probably despised them for not working and eating too much. However, no lionesses chased them away for the time being because the adult lions in the territory didn't have any objections. They wouldn't chase the cubs away in advance. When the other lions woke up, they saw that there was new food in their territory. They accepted it without hesitation. After all, they were quite hungry after sleeping for so long. They didn't rely on the lionesses to hunt while they were recuperating. They had 3 lions so they could still go out and hunt. Ao Daisai, Big Brother, and Little 4 ate a few meals of prey brought back by the lionesses. After that, they stopped freeloading and went out hunting with their cubs. It was early in the dry season, so prey wasn't that hard to catch. The brothers worked together, and their recovery went smoothly. Maybe it was because their battle with the Northern Alliance had caused a chain reaction, but the territory was peaceful recently. Even the wandering lions didn't step into their territory. The hyenas and wild dogs didn't dare to act rashly either. They would admit defeat if there were more than 2 lions. Since Ao Daisai was the leader of the hunting party, Xiao Qishi was able to eat zebra every few days. Every time little bear Xiao tilted his head and ate zebra with satisfaction, Ao Daisai would lick his wounds and tell him to eat slowly. His serious eyes seemed to be telling him to eat slowly. The wound would open again if he used too much force. Xiao Qishi's wound was on his shoulder, so biting prey would definitely affect his wound. Only a dignified and refined eating style suited him. But after being a beast for so long, who could still be dignified and refined? Therefore, she would still occasionally tear at her wounds. At this time, she would cry out and look at the Ao Daisai tearfully. "Wait a minute, Why did Xiao Qishi feel that her pain nerves were different from these big cats? He had never seen an injured lion show a pained expression. Only his own civet often grimaced in pain because it was in too much pain. Indeed, Ao Daisai did not seem to care about the small wounds on his body. His expression never showed any signs of pain. Even when Xiao Qishi licked his wounds, he had no reaction. When it was Yolashanda's turn to be licked, tears welled up in her eyes. A lion's tongue really had barbs. In the eyes of the bystanders, this scene made them feel that their love was very enviable. They could not believe that there would be two wild lions who loved each other so deeply. Furthermore, they were two famous lions with strong combat strength. The love between the strong on the grassland was too beautiful. When their wounds were slightly better, Purple Lightning and Chung Feng took on the job of patrolling to reduce the burden of the pride. After all, it was already the dry season. They did not seem to want to be idling lions. Seeing that everyone was finding things for him to do, Xiao Qishi felt that he could not stay in the territory and continue sleeping, right? Although no lion dared to talk to him, even if he slept. Their pride was a pride that respected the old and loved the young. The leader of the lionesses no longer went out to hunt. Because she was too old, her combat strength had declined. Currently, she was only responsible for taking care of the cubs. However, the lionesses still listened to her. In other words, it was a transition period between the old and the new. Many things were slowly being transferred to the new leader. Therefore, the lionesses who were tolerant had always had a stable and smooth life in their later years. In this aspect, they could not compare to the lions who always competed with the same sex. However, Xiao Qishi was confident that the lions he raised were all lions with a conscience. When he was old and came to ask for money, they would more or less give him some food, right? If he dare not to give it to him, bite him. The three injured went out to patrol together, blocking the sight of their boyfriends, wives, and children. The atmosphere was extremely relaxed. When they raised their heads and took a breath, even the air smelled of freedom. The injured looked lazy and relaxed. They strolled on the withered grass and occasionally yawned and stretched. Thinking that they might not have the chance to patrol together in the near future, Xiao Qishi could not help but feel sad. He approached Purple Lightning and licked the wound on his back. He was not worried, because everyone could take care of themselves. He was just a little reluctant. Purple Lightning slowly turned to look at Yolashanda. In his casual glance, there was no deliberate indifference or rejection. Perhaps it was because Do would not beat him up if it was not around. Today, he was quite close to Xiao Qishi. The three lions walked side by side, their tails sweeping in the air as they communicated harmoniously. At the edge of the territory, they brushed past the pride next door. Having experienced a life-and-death battle, they were not nervous at all. They just calmly peed on the ground and told each other that this was the boundary. If they dared to come over, they could try. Grandpa will teach you how to be lions again. The male lion opposite them raised his head. He was about to curse, but when he saw the three fat and strong lions with a faint murderous aura around them, who could stand it? The male lion opposite them could only watch as they excreted. He watched as they used their hind legs to dig the soil in his direction, as if they were burying themselves instead of feces. Were they bullying the lions? That's right, they were bullying the lions. After the three stinky hooligans finished their demonstration, they shook their claws and went home happily. Oh, whoa. Little Bear, Xiao, saw a giraffe again when he went out to patrol today. Once he came back, he whined beside the big white lion shamelessly because he wanted to eat the giraffe. He wanted to eat it. He wanted to eat it. He wanted to eat it. He wanted to eat it, but he could not. Ao Daisai did not know what was wrong with this lion. He was at a loss for a moment. Then he held a piece of zebra meat in his mouth and gave it to Xiao Qishi. Zebra meat? Let's eat it first. After Xiao Qishi finished the zebra meat, she continued to torment her boyfriend. Woo 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 e. If he wanted to eat a giraffe, Ao Daisai would catch it for him. If she didn't catch it, he would lie on the ground and roll around. Eldest brother, second brother, third brother, and fourth brother, goggle. JPG did this lion have any shame? Although they also wanted to eat giraffes, the giraffes in their territory had not been caught by the lions all year round. Now, there were quite a number of them. They could see them every time they went out on patrol. Not only Yolashanda could not resist the temptation, but they also could not resist the temptation. Aodisai fell helpless. After a while, he brought Xiao Qishi a zebra leg. Although they were fooling around, they still had to eat. Xiao Qishi lay on the ground and ate. She felt that her leg had been bitten by someone. She wondered who Aodisai had snatched it from. He did not care anymore. She was in the arms of whoever had her legs. Big Yuenzi at the bottom of the food chain. What the F***CK? The little fur ball who liked to be with Yolashanda gathered around to play with Yolashanda's leg. They could play for an entire night without getting bored because they were such playful felines. Big Yuenzi, who was afraid that his food would be snatched away again, held a piece of meat with bones in his mouth and ran far away to hide and eat. He even specially faced the pride with his, but to express his dissatisfaction with dough. As if I would care. He did not like meat with bones. Otherwise, what could he do if he snatched it away? The other lions were not as troublesome as them. They were all normal lions who ate properly. This was the most harmonious and equal pride the photographers had ever seen. Even during the dry season, when there was a lack of food, the lions would not only care about filling their stomachs. The audience said that watching Yolashanda's pride recuperate in harmony, they could see old age. However, they did not know that Yolashanda had his own plans. In the middle of the dry season, it was as if the entire world was dry. Herbivores gathered by the river and went to the other side of the river to find more grass. The lions who wanted to eat their fill seemed to have no choice but to migrate with them. However, it was not easy to drag a family down. It was so tiring to travel a long distance. Should they forget it? The main reason was that they could barely survive the dry season by eating and starving at home. The injured lions had mostly recovered from their wounds and could participate in the hunt normally. At dawn on this day, before the sun rose completely, the weather was still relatively cool. After Yolashanda woke up, he roared in the territory and called for everyone to go out. The lions might not know what he was going to do, but they were happy to listen to his call and move out together. On one hand, it was because lions were social animals and liked to gather wherever they went. To put it bluntly, they were easily led and did not have a strong concept of being alone. Aodisai? ? Did he follow Xiao Qishi because he did not have his own thoughts? No. On the contrary, it was precisely because he had his own thoughts that he actually found such a lion as his partner. The 10 lions moved out together again, not to find trouble with anyone, but purely to catch the giraffe. Photographer, you guys are promising. Just now, they thought that these 10 lions had just recovered from their injuries and were going out to eliminate demons and defend the Tao again. Thank the heavens, they did not expect that they were only going to catch the giraffe. The lions, who did not have a clear goal previously, were all at a loss as they walked on the road. They did not look energetic. When they saw the giraffe, they instantly agreed with this delicious target and pricked up their ears. Great, they had long wanted to eat giraffes, but Yolashanda had never taught them how to catch giraffes. Many lions probably thought that giraffes were too powerful and could not be caught. Xiao Qishi, I want to wait for you to catch them for me to eat when you grow up. F***CK. Back then, he was alone and had to bring 5 cubs. Who gave him the courage to catch giraffes? Liang Jingru? The lions focused on the giraffe in the distance, as if they were thinking of a strategy. At this point, Yolashanda had nothing to do. Her boyfriend would settle it. The big white lion chose a direction and slowly approached the target. The other lions also spread out and sneaked into the grass, slowly forming a circle around the giraffe. The vigilant big cats raised their heads to observe the movements of their prey after walking for a while. They did not act rashly. Actually, there was an advantage to hunting giraffes. Giraffes generally did not focus on the ground, so the lions, who were easily exposed, had less to worry about being discovered. The rear hooves of giraffes were very powerful. Even a 500 to 600 kilograms male lion would not be of much use. But it did not matter. There were 10 of them. The lie-and-see tactic was useful in any situation. The two giraffes who were eating leaves did not realize that danger was coming until a lion jumped out and tried to attack. It immediately angered the giraffe, which looked cute on the outside, but was actually very bad-tempered. It immediately chased after the bold lion and attacked it. It was difficult for a lone lion to achieve great things. The giraffe did not care about him at all. Little did it know that it had fallen into the lion's trap when it left. When the other giraffe was alone, the other 9 lions that were lying in ambush rushed up like a swarm of bees. If Xiao Qixi could speak and had a loudspeaker, he would definitely shout, "Hold me back! Hold me back! Comrades, hold me back!" However, he did not have a loudspeaker and did not know how to speak. He could only set an example and bite the giraffe's thigh. Then he desperately hugged the other party's only attack weapon, the slender and beautiful leg. Ao Daisai seemed to have sensed something and pounced on it to bite this leg. It was difficult for a lone lion to support it, and it was difficult for a single leg to kick. With only one leg that could be kicked away, the poor Lulu could not perform. As more lions pounced on it, the giraffe's escape speed was immediately slowed down. Then it could not kick even if it wanted to. It could only fall under the siege of the 9 lions and become a delicious meal for the lions during the dry season. At this moment, the lion, who was panting for being chased by another giraffe, finally could not take it anymore and ran back. The giraffe had originally chased after the lion fiercely, wanted to kick the lion in the head and let him have a taste of the consequences of angering a giraffe. In the end, when it ran over and saw the 9 lions lined up with the corpse of its companion lying beside it, it said goodbye. It immediately turned around and ran. The lions saw that another prey had run away and continued to lower their heads to eat the giraffe with ferocious expressions. It was not that they looked ferocious, but their faces were covered in blood and they looked terrifying. In Xiao Qixi's eyes, they were all cute ghosts. She finally ate the giraffe. It was indeed delicious. The meat was a little like wild deer, but it was more delicate and delicious than wild deer. It tasted better. Yolashanda smacked her lips and let out a sound of enjoyment. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Delicious, delicious. How should he put it? Today's meal was equivalent to a farewell meal. There were so many lions in the pride, and the subadult male cubs were almost 3 years old. It was not a problem for them to live alone in such a stable environment. Xiao Qixi thought so. There were a total of 3 territories. The territory of Melissa's pride was given to the 4 subadult male cubs. That was also the territory that their parents had protected. It was understandable for them to live there. The middle area was left to the Yuanzi and second brother to take care of. They had the most wives, and the old lionesses also stayed here to spend their later years. Further north was left to the brothers Purple Lightning and Qing Xuan. As for Xiao Qixi and Ao Daisai, they occupied the northernmost area. There should be many female lions and cubs living in the vast and turbulent territory. He and Ao Daisai had to deal with them. Xiao Qixi was very willing to give up a portion of his territory to the lionesses and cubs. After all, the territory was vast. He and Ao Daisai could not eat such a big cake. Furthermore, it was not easy to manage a large territory. Just patrolling every day was a problem. Wouldn't it be better to save time on patrolling and sleep well? After eating their fill, the lions dragged the giraffe that they had rarely hunted back to their territory and let the lionesses and cubs have a taste. At the same time, they held a family meeting while everyone was around. Of course, Xiao Qixi felt that they could not understand, but it did not stop him from talking passionately for the entire night. His roars went from being excited and looking forward to the future to being reluctant to part with them and reminding them. His tone and mood had undergone many changes, and he was about to cry. It was so sad to separate from the family. Boo-hoo. However, they could not fill their stomachs when they gathered together. When Ao Daisai heard his partner howling, he also howled, as if responding to the other party's agitation. When Xiao Qixi howled to his sadness, tears welled up in his eyes. Ao Daisai looked at the other party worriedly with his blue eyes, as if he had understood something. Under their howls, the other lions also howled. Hence, the entire pride howled for the entire night, making the photographer feel very strange. What was going on? He did not know. However, this should not be an ordinary performance. It could only be said that the roars filled with reluctance to part still reached the hearts of every lion. The next day, the pride took the lead to chase the 4 subadult lions next door. They were almost 3 years old, and their physiques and combat strength were above the standard. Furthermore, they were dividing their territory in their own home. How was this independence? They were clearly tearing down the second generation to work and putting on an act. The 4 little lions were quite aggrieved. They howled and looked back 3 times with every step they took, unwilling to leave. However, the adult lions were fierce to them and kept being fierce. The 4 brothers could only reluctantly leave the group. Fortunately, the next door was not far, and they could often come back to visit. Next, Yulashanda called for Purple Lightning and Qing Shuang and asked them to bring their wives and children away. De Yuanzi and Chengfeng, who were not greeted, looked at Yulashanda blankly. Their round eyes seemed to be saying, "You're not bringing us to play?" Yulashanda walked in front of them and rubbed against them one by one. He really could not bear to part with them. How many years had it been since they were 9 months old? This was the first time they were facing a separate life. Fortunately, it was not far. Wouldn't it be a matter of minutes if they wanted to visit in the future? Xiao Qishi howled at the 2 brothers as if to say, "Take care of your wives and children. Let's meet when we have time and squeeze out some time to meet when we don't have time." In short, the life of a big group ends here. Take care. The lions stared at each other and finally accepted the arrangement to go their separate ways. Perhaps they also knew that they had a vast territory to take care of and wives and children to feed. Splitting up was the best choice. However, they were still reluctant. Their loud roars followed their brother's footsteps and sent them next door. Purple Lightning and Qing Shuang took away 7 lionesses and 6 cubs. The size of this pride was not big or small, and it was a number that was more suitable for survival. There were still about 20 or so lions left in the camp. Thus, the huge pride of more than 40 lions was now divided into 3 groups. The photographers were stunned. So the lions were going to split up. That was right. They would definitely take over the territory of the Northern Alliance. When they saw the Norman brothers step onto the land where their fathers had bled and completed the arduous process of returning to the glorious era, the fans who had followed them for 5 generations no longer had any regrets. They were very satisfied. They only hoped that the 4th generation would give birth to more cubs and not be afraid that they could not afford to raise them. Yulashanda and White Lion would definitely help raise them. Even if White Lion was unwilling, Yulashanda would make him agree. After walking for half a day, the lions arrived at OL3 and OL4's camp. The sky was already dark and the cubs were hungry. They were tired of their mother and wanted to eat. The lionesses comforted their children for a moment before throwing the cubs to the lions to take care of. Then, they went out to hunt together. Actually, the photographers were very surprised that the lionesses of Melissa's pride were willing to leave with the lions. Melissa's pride was a very united pride. There had never been a record of a lioness being taken away by a lion. Although this was just a split, it was not considered leaving the pride. This was because if something unexpected happened, they could gather together and face it together at any time. Chapter 74. The Big White Lion, who was easily angered by certain things, chased after his brother. Only the 2 lions, Xiao Qishi and Purple Lightning, were left at the scene. The 2 strong lions bathed in the bright moonlight, but neither of them cared about the other. It was as if they had no interaction. If Xiao Qishi could speak, he would definitely say at this awkward moment, "The moon is so round tonight. It looks like a big basin." Unfortunately, he could not speak. He could only silently mutter in his heart, "You little heartless thing, I've raised you for so long. It's fine if you're not as close to me as the other lions, but you don't even look at me." Oof. Yulashanda was angry and made an angry sound. He wanted to find Ao Daisai. He ignored this cold and heartless lion. However, Ao Daisai had already chased Qing Shuang away. If he wanted to find him, he had to run over. Yulashanda had already exercised too much today, so forget it. Xiao Qishi stood on the spot and looked around for a moment. He gave up the idea of looking for a boyfriend. The lion, who was patrolling seriously, suddenly stopped and turned to look at Xiao Qishi, who was no longer moving forward. He had a puzzled expression, as if asking, "Why aren't you moving?" Yulashanda, who was looking around, did not notice Xiao Qishi's actions, so he did not respond. The big lion, who was ignored, was not angry. He quietly squatted on the spot and waited. It was only when Xiao Qishi's gaze landed on purple lightning again that he realized that the other party was waiting for him. Not only that, but his gaze was also on him, as if he had not moved away. Xiao Qishi was a little stunned. He did not expect purple lightning to specially wait for him. He suddenly felt that it was not that purple lightning did not love him. Perhaps it was just that the way he expressed it was different. After thinking it through, Xiao Qishi happily jumped over and pounced on purple lightning. He roared, "Are you waiting for me?" Little lightning. Purple lightning was indeed waiting for Xiao Qishi. Purple lightning, who was already more than 6 years old, was more mature and stable than in his adolescence. He would not use his eyes and actions to respond to this lion's closeness. Instead, she revealed her true thoughts and raised her paws to play with the playful Yulashanda. Xiao Qishi did not even have time to react when she was attacked. She was shocked. Purple lightning is actually playing with me. Petrification. This gave Purple Bolt the opportunity to successfully counterattack. However, in the next second, it would not be so easy. Xiao Qishi, "My goodness, little lightning, I'm coming." Awoo. Roar. The two strong and injured lions were rolling and fighting on the grass. The photographer was really afraid that they would tear each other's wounds, but this didn't happen. Both of them were very measured. Although they looked fierce, they didn't touch each other at all. The cameraman could tell after watching for a while that they were having fun. This was the first time that this cold and arrogant lion was willing to play with Yulashanda. Under normal circumstances, he would not pay much attention to Yulashanda, as if he was disgusted. However, Yulashanda liked to provoke him and persevered. It was said that if you never forget something, you will have an echo. Under Yulashanda's persistent provocation, the cool boy finally played with him. Everyone liked the new and hated the old. Every lion in the pride was tired of Xiao Qishi. He felt very good when he unexpectedly touched the cold and arrogant purple lightning. However, the other party was quite competitive and would not give in to him in terms of strength. Therefore, not long after, he, who had made a mistake, was pressed to the ground and crying. So this was the feeling of being pressed to the ground and rubbed against it. Purple lightning pressed down on Xiao Qishi. He seemed to be in a good mood after his victory. His eyes were bright and full of spirit. After he enjoyed the achievement of overthrowing the evil forces, he lowered his head and licked Xiao Qishi's mane. He was gentle and strong. The atmosphere was so beautiful and harmonious. Xiao Qishi thought that he had a chance to break free from the suppression and regain his freedom. Therefore, he tried to struggle. However, Purple Lightning, who sensed that he was resisting, suppressed him with all his might. With a sudden attack, Xiao Qishi was worried that the dinner in his stomach would be squeezed out. Awoo, Ao Daisai. If you don't come back, your little baby will be bullied to death. Fortunately, Ao Daisai had returned to the vicinity after teaching Qing Shuang a lesson. When he heard the little bear's call, he hurriedly rushed back. When he found that Purple Lightning was bullying Xiao Qishi, he roared and pounced on Purple Lightning without a word. Purple Lightning immediately jumped to the side. He did not lower himself to Dou's level. Like Qing Shuang, he would hide as much as he could because he was not stupid. Wouldn't it be stupid to fight with Dou? She watched as these avenged lions chased each other around the grassland. Photographer, awesome. However, the brothers were not just playing. They still had to do business. No other lions had set foot in the territory that had just experienced a fierce battle. The territory that was under the jurisdiction of third and fourth brothers was still considered peaceful. The carnivores living in the territory avoided them and only dared to observe from the shadows. Third and fourth brothers sprinkled their urine on the edge of the territory adjacent to the other lions. Then they waited for Qiao Qixi and Do to sprinkle their urine, but they did not. Although it did not matter if they sprinkled their urine and could deter more opponents, Qiao Qixi felt that if they split up, they had to act like it. They could not be unruly. Since they said that this was third and fourth brothers' territory, it was third and fourth brothers' territory. After marking, the lions felt a sense of belonging to this place. This was their natural instinct. When they passed by the water source in the territory, the four lions lined up by the water and drank enough water before taking domineering steps back home to sleep. Lao San and Lao Si were sleeping together with their wives and children. It was a harmonious family. Qiao Qixi was also sleeping with her handsome boyfriend. It was a blissful scene. The two lions licked each other's big faces. A certain talkative lion unilaterally said a few pretentious private words and fell asleep. Since there was no danger in this area, the time to leave soon came again. Although Qiao Qixi said that she would not freeload, she still freeloaded 3 meals before leaving. 3 days was enough for Purple Lightning and Qing Shuang to feel a sense of belonging here. The lionesses and cubs also seemed to be very adapted to life here. This was also true. After all, they were wild animals. A territory with prey and water was a good place for them. This time, the departure was very quiet. After playing with the cubs enough, Qiao Qixi wagged her tail and slowly disappeared into the grass with Ao Daisai. Third and fourth brothers' families either lay on their stomachs or stood to see them off. She wondered if the lion had any feelings of loss. Qiao Qixi glanced at the calm big white lion next door and thought to herself, probably not. But at this moment, she heard the roars of little 3 and little 4 as they sent her off. Hence, she was no longer so relaxed and thought that lions did not miss anyone. They did. After a while, Ao Daisai looked up and roared back, communicating actively with his brothers. Qiao Qixi was very happy. In this life, Ao Daisai really had his own brothers. He was no longer a lonely polar bear in the Arctic Circle, but an African lion that understood brotherhood. Satisfaction and happiness overflowed in Qiao Qixi's heart. He thought that he must be lucky to know such a group of lions. Passing by the land where the previous battle had taken place, the bodies of the 4 defeated lions were eaten clean by carnivores as expected, leaving only some bones and fur. Ao Daisai did not even look at them and walked past them. Unlike Qiao Qixi, he was still recalling this matter. As they walked, they marked out their territory and stopped when they felt that they had marked out enough territory. 2 lions who did not marry did not need a large territory. At this time, the lionesses of the Northern Alliance were faced with a difficult choice. They had lost their guardian lions, and the wandering lions were eyeing their territory and their pride covetously. Moreover, there were a dozen or so cubs in the pride that were only a few months old. Perhaps the 4 brothers of the Northern Alliance were too harsh on their own children, and many of their children had died. The half-grown lions that were driven out earlier were all dead. Not a single one survived. It was safe to say that these dozen or so lion cubs were the last surviving descendants of the Northern Alliance. Even a fool would know that these pitiful cubs were going to die under the jaws of other lions in the near future. No matter how strong the lionesses were, they did not have the ability to beat back the lions again and again. Just like back then, the lionesses of the Norman Alliance did not have the ability to protect the 5 brothers. This was a helpless fact. On the withered yellow grass, the scrawny and frightened cubs were hiding in the grass and waiting for the lionesses to return from their hunt. Although their fathers were very strong, they were always busy fighting wars and did not care about the cubs. Therefore, the strength of a lion did not mean that he could raise a large number of offspring. Qiao Qixi and Ao Daisai slowly walked over and saw these scrawny cubs. They were so skinny and small. Did the lions of a Northern Alliance grow up eating sex? How could they raise their cubs to look like refugees? Yolashanda, the world's children's friend, cursed in her mind. It looked like this was the territory of the lionesses and their cubs. But why was there not a single lioness guarding this place? The two lions did not want to drive them away. They just wanted to separate their territory and leave the rest for the lionesses and their cubs. However, if a shameless lion wanted to take over this place, they would not be polite. Not a single lioness stayed behind to protect this place because the lionesses had been attacked multiple times. The unborn lionesses had given up on protecting their cubs and looked for another way out. Only the cub's mother was still stubbornly resisting. Fortunately, they had successfully brought back prey today, and the cubs were unharmed. The lionesses with keen sense of smell could smell that a lion had been here, but they did not know why it did not kill the cubs. As expected, they found a scent left behind by two powerful lions nearby. Fear grew in their hearts, and they quickly took the cubs to find another stronghold. However, the powerful lions' daily patrols and demonstrations also stopped the wandering lions who wanted to invade this territory. They were probably cursing me in their minds. It was taken over by other little bastards so quickly. The wandering lion, who looked like it had never washed its hair all year round, roared at its companions, as if asking, "Brother, charge!" The other lion sniffed the grass that had been peed on. There were two of them, and they were very powerful. He turned around and walked away with his tail wagging. "Charge, shovel, shovel, retreat." The unwashed lion followed reluctantly. The lionesses who took the cubs to hide at the edge of Yulashanda's husband's territory breathed a sigh of relief. If the other party came again, they would have no choice. The mother lion who could not bear the burden lay down and licked the frightened children. They retreated like they were walking on a tightrope. They must have been forced to do so. The photographer's mood was also quite complicated. In the past, he had always heard about the legends of Yulashanda and the white lion. They were all so brave, kind, and impeccable. They were more or less unconvinced. After all, they had been with the North for so long. No matter what, they still had feelings for them. Now that they were all wiped out, they could not help but feel sad. They thought that the two lions had rushed all the way here to torture and kill the descendants of the North. They did not expect that the other party would turn around and leave after a few glances. They did not even bother to kill them. They even ceded the extra territory to the lionesses and cubs. Yulashanda and the white lion's act of not killing and ceding had won the respect and admiration of the African lions all over the world. They were worthy of the title of the legends of the grassland. The photographer who followed the North knew that Yulashanda and the white lion's influence was far more than that. They also protected the lionesses and cubs from the side. No other lion on the grassland could do this. The legendary lion Yulashanda, who was secretly loved by many people and lions, was hunting with his partner. He was very happy that there were zebras in this territory. When he saw the zebras, his eyes lit up with excitement. He used his tail to whip Ao Daisai next door, letting the other party know his strong desire to eat zebras. Ao Daisai stood motionless in the grass, but he looked a little hesitant. He did not have the intention to hunt. Perhaps he was thinking about two things. First, two lions could not finish one zebra. The meat would easily spoil during the dry season. Who would want to eat rotten meat when there was fresh food? Second, it was very tiring to hunt zebras. There was no way to use the lion wave tactic now. He was a lion. Was the little bear trying to tire him to death? After Xiao Qixi was done being excited, he also thought of this. After the division, he could not use his ultimate move. Then he would not be able to catch zebras. He licked his paws greedily and thought to himself, if he did not eat zebras, what would he eat? Xiao Qixi was not willful. Otherwise, would she really want to tire her husband to death? He looked around and used his nose to catch the smell in the wind to find prey. Unfortunately, there was no other prey around except for this herd of zebras. Ao Daisai was also thinking. Standing under the hot sun, he narrowed his sea-blue eyes and made his pupils shrink to the size of a duck. Then, he opened his mouth slightly and walked to the other side of the herd of zebras. Seeing that Ao Daisai had decided to hunt the zebras, Xiao Qixi was happy, but also a little worried. If that was the case, he would be responsible for driving the herd of zebras away. Only Ao Daisai could hunt the zebras by himself. Xiao Qixi followed silently. He licked his lips and wanted to say, "Forget it, let's go." However, his eyes were fixed on the fat body of the zebra. He had not eaten it for many days. Recently, he had eaten so much that he was almost traumatized. Then, "Can Ao Daisai do your best?" Xiao Little Bear puffed out his chest and said, "I will definitely be a qualified bodyguard." Xiao Qixi focused on watching her husband's every move. Her muscles were tense, and she was ready to rush out and block the danger for her husband at any time. Ao Daisai patiently lay dormant for a long time. During this time, he turned his head and looked at the nervous Yulishanda. He slowly blinked his eyes, as if to say, "Don't worry. Haste makes waste. Let's wait a little longer." Receiving the other party's teasing gaze, Xiao Qixi was angry and stared back at him. "It's so hot. It's too hot to stay here. If you don't rush out, I will." It was indeed very hot. About 2 minutes later, under Little Bear's urging, Ao Daisai finally rushed out like an arrow. He accurately pounced on the zebra and bit its neck. The zebra immediately jumped up and ran vigorously, trying to get rid of the hunter on its body. The huge movement it made immediately attracted the rescue of its companions. Xiao Qixi said, "Dog, zebra, cover Grandpa's soldier." A strong yellow lion rushed out and started to deal with the rescue zebras, not allowing them to get close to their companions. The rest was left to Ao Daisai. Occasionally, Xiao Qixi would turn back to observe the battle. She realized that even though she was the only lion in the battle, Otis did not seem to be in a sorry state. He had made sure that the zebra had nowhere to run and was bleeding profusely. The zebra struggled in panic and could only sadly feel its life slowly slipping away. Oh wow, the Chow family's unique skill of bleeding was stolen by Ao Daisai in the disguise of doe. Who would have thought that this would happen? After the zebra fell to the ground, its companions gradually dispersed. Because there was no way to save it, no one would take the risk. Xiao Qixi found time and immediately came over to stab it. Otherwise, how could he have the face to snatch the delicious food from Ao Daisai later? Ao Daisai, whose face was splashed with blood when he was bleeding, looked up and gasped for breath. At the same time, he looked to see if his partner was injured. He found that the little bear was attacking the zebra alive and well. His pupils immediately dilated, and he was full of joy. This place was directly exposed to the sun, and it was very, very hot. The lions rested for a moment, and together they dragged the zebra to a cool place to enjoy the delicious food. Yes, fragrant, delicious. Ow! It was good that the liver was given to Ao Daisai, and there were no lions to snatch it. Woo-woo! There were no lions to snatch the heart, and it ate it by itself. The zebra's stomach was full of delicious food, and it began to gnaw on the meat. Ao Daisai liked to eat the chewy thigh meat, and Xiao Qixi liked to eat the fresh ribs. The husband and wife ate until they were full. Sure enough, there was still a lot of zebra meat left. In fact, it could be eaten several times. Although it felt good, it felt a little strange. Although he was glad that there were no lions to snatch the meat when he was eating just now. Now that he was full, Xiao Qixi looked at the remaining food and felt lost. He thought that if it was in the pride of lions in the past, this zebra would not be enough for him and his brothers to make. Sigh. Xiao Qixi admitted that he missed everyone. While he was cleaning his hair, he wondered how everyone was doing in the past week of their separation. Were they still adapting to the life of a small group? Did they also miss Yulishanda, the handsome and cute lion? As if sensing Xiao Qixi's low mood, Ao Daisai, who was seriously cleaning his face, immediately stopped to comfort the lonely little bear, and the way he comforted him was to hug and play with him. Even though Xiao Qixi was already an 8-year-old lion, he might not be able to flip over in another 2 years. Roar! Xiao Qixi pretended to bite Ao Daisai's neck from above. Roar! Ao Daisai also pretended to open his mouth to stop him. The two of them played around, and slowly, Xiao Qixi's mood improved. Suddenly, Ao Daisai, who was hugging him as a cushion, paused and looked up at the bushes. Obviously, there were uninvited guests in their territory. Xiao Qishi hurriedly got up and looked up. He saw 4 big furry heads with shy expressions on their faces. They were panting heavily as they walked towards them under the scorching sun. Seeing the 4 familiar furry faces, Xiao Qishi was stunned because they were the 4 subadults from the southernmost part of the territory. Why were they here? Roar! How dare you? You found me even though I was so far away. Xiao Qishi jumped up and roared. His emotions were complicated. These lions had come a long way. Should he welcome them or turn hostile and chase them back? When did lions have such a good memory? They remembered the way after walking through it once. That was not easy. Moreover, they did not look for anyone. They directly skipped over the other lions in the 2 territories and came here. Roar! Hearing their familiar roars, the 4 subadult lions also roared affectionately. They had walked for a long time and were very tired, but they still trotted forward. Their changing expressions seemed to be saying, "We finally found you." The young lions ran over to take a look. There was still half a zebra lying on the ground. They were immediately attracted and kept salivating. What a coincidence! Are they eating? The author has something to say. Ao Daisai. So annoying. Many people are asking about the next unit. The next unit is the thug in a suit. Chapter 75. Facing the 4 poor boys who looked hungry and thirsty, Xiao Qishi thought to himself that he had raised them himself. He could only turn a blind eye and allow them to have ideas about the half-zebra. Fortunately, he and Ao Daisai had not finished eating. It would go bad soon. The 4 poor relatives, whose mouths were dry, had been afraid of the white lion since they were young. At this moment, they tried to approach the food and realized that the resting white lion only raised its eyelids and glanced at them, as if it was too lazy to get up to chase them away. Thus, they dared to lie down and enjoy their first meal in 2 days. Xiao Qishi was wrong. These little brats did not remember the way. They slowly groped their way over. Thus, they spent a long time and did not hunt on the way. It was as if they wanted to find the lion they were familiar with. Xiao Qishi was more or less touched. But so what if he was touched? Could he not be independent if he was touched? Could he go and freeload if he was touched? No. With only a few good years left to live, Yulashanda, who wanted to be intimate with Ao Daisai, was no longer soft-hearted towards the little lions who clung to him. Xiao Qishi planned to chase them away after they finished this meal and rested for the night. The fighting strength of the half-grown boys was still strong. The remaining zebras were eaten clean, and it was obvious that they had been hungry for some time. After the 4 half-grown male lions were full, they were so pleased with themselves that they wanted to get sick of Xiao Qishi. However, the white lion, who had not chased them away when they were about to eat, suddenly attacked when they were about to touch Xiao Qishi. It suddenly got up and bit the nearest little lion. Roar! From the sound, one could tell that it was not a real attack, but it was definitely full of deterrence. The 4 little ones did not dare to have any ideas about Xiao Qishi. The photographer could tell that the white lion was very possessive. It could eat his food and enter his territory, but could not touch Yulashanda. Yulashanda, who was being fought over, was speechless. Back then, he pitied them for not having a father, so he naturally took extra care of them. Now, he also understood that it was the first time these little brats had separated from the family, so they were very attached to their elders. However, Xiao Qishi did not dare to challenge Ao Daisai's nerves. The little brats should take the opportunity to wean themselves. Was it appropriate for them to act coquettishly when they were already so old? He was just asking if it was suitable. They were all tall and big subadult lions. They could not get tired of Xiao Qishi and could only lie on the ground and roll freely. The scene was quite delightful. Xiao Qishi watched with relish. When they were tired of rolling around, they would directly occupy their territory and sleep soundly. The 2 adult lions had blank expressions and seemed to be very helpless towards the juniors. They could only find another shade to rest. The next morning, Xiao Qishi was afraid that the young men would stay in his and Ao Daisai's territory and refused to leave. Thus, he made the decision to fiercely chase the juniors away. The four little lions were also obedient. It seemed that they had only come over to confirm where they were. The next morning, when they were chased away, they wagged their tails and left obediently. Perhaps the four of them were returning to their own territory, or perhaps the four of them were going on an adventure together. Anything was possible. No matter what the four little lions chose, Xiao Qishi believed that they would definitely be able to turn danger into safety if they encountered any problems. The photographer had thought that the six lions would live together again, but he did not expect that after a short meeting, Yulishanda would not allow the little lions to live with him, even if there was no conflict between them for reproduction resources. Yea, he had chased away the bright light Bulbex for. He could live a sticky and affectionate life again. Xiao Qishi returned to Ao Daisai's side to claim credit, appearing to walk in circles around Ao Daisai. This was the unique nature of the cat family. For example, domestic cats would also circle around their owner's feet, which meant that they were acting coquettishly. Ao Daisai had also fused with the genes of the cat family and received the hereditary memories of the cat family. He could feel most of the meaning that Xiao Qishi had expressed to him. Perhaps Ao Daisai did not have a deeper understanding of many of the expressions. He only had simple love. When Xiao Qishi walked in front of him, Ao Daisai's gaze fell on the other party. He was focused and gentle. If one only looked at the surface, it was difficult to tell that he was a wild animal with rich and passionate feelings who had even pursued his partner for 2 lifetimes. Xiao Qishi, who was older than his partner, buried his face, which was known as the most handsome face in the grassland, into the other party's warm and thick chest. Ao Daisai had a good standard of living. The short white hair on his body was glossy and covered his skin densely and orderly, like a piece of fine satin. When his nose rubbed against it, it felt smooth and warm, full of the elasticity of a young adult. Xiao Qishi, who was lying next to the other party and taking an afternoon nap, sighed and raised his paws to take a look. The golden color of his fur had also been raised by Ao Daisai until it was like satin. The extent of wear and tear on his paws and paw pads made it impossible to tell that he was more than 8 years old. Even if he said that he was only 6 years old, no one would doubt it. This was probably a lion that had been pampered by a boyfriend. His 10 fingers did not do any household chores. Oh no. Xiao Qishi remembered that it had been very hard for him to take care of the children. Now it was time to repay him. The scorching sun was high in the sky, and insects were chirping in the bushes. Herds of cows, horses, and antelopes were also on their way in the afternoon while the carnivores were resting. Thousands of pairs of hooves stepped on the ground, causing dust to splash. The leopard, who could not sleep because of the noise, stayed on the tall tree and looked at everything on the grassland. The river here was wide and big. The river water was turbid and dirty because of the animals crossing the river. The 2 thirsty lions wanted to drink water and could only slowly walk up along the river. They only came out to walk around at sunset. They were fat and strong, one yellow and one white. There were no lionesses or tribes beside them. In order to be with their partners, the 2 lions took the initiative to choose a life of self-exile. However, for now, their combat strength would not encounter any danger on this grassland because they could still run if they could not win. Wasn't it very simple for 2 lions to run? Looking at the water buffaloes that were constantly moving in front of them, Xiao Qishi and Ao Daisai stopped. This was the most common traffic jam on the grassland. There were no traffic lights or traffic rules. If they wanted to cross the road, they could only wait in place or take a detour thousands of miles away. That was because the 2 lions who had a grudge against the water buffaloes could not hope to pass through the other party's group and let the other party pass through. Something might happen if they did. The husband and wife stood on a small soil slope on the shore and looked down, watching the situation in the river. The water buffaloes were still impressive when crossing the river. They relied on their weight of more than 1,000 kilograms and were not afraid to choose the rapid river section to cross the river. This way, They could avoid the interference of the large and powerful crocodiles. Other than hippos and elephants, most animals were still afraid of crocodiles in the water. However, the overly heavy water buffaloes also made the crocodiles a little afraid. When the water buffaloes crossed the river, even the large crocodiles did not dare to join the fun. They only bullied animals of moderate size like zebras and wildebeests. Seeing that the road was not so fast and unobstructed, Huang Baifu slowly walked down the riverbank and towards the plains. If he could not solve his thirst for the time being, he would see if there was a suitable target to hunt. However, as far as the eye could see, other than the water buffaloes, there were only small warthogs on the grassland, and that warthog had been targeted by a cheetah. The greenish-yellow grass almost covered the cheetah's figure. At first, Xiao Qixi only saw the black warthogs. Their horns on both ends of their noses were particularly conspicuous. Not to mention that the warthogs were short and ugly. They were also quite unique. The cheetah behind them ran, and Xiao Qixi finally saw the beautiful and lean figure. Its speed was so fast that the lion could only look on in the dust. It was not bragging or exaggerating. Cheetahs were indeed valiant when they ran. However, their fate was always rough. After the cheetah ran over, it found that there was not only one warthog there, but a nest. Soon, the situation became a nest of warthogs chasing after the cheetah. Cheetah, F***CK. Xiao Qixi did not like a warthog, but a nest of warthogs was different. He and Ao Daisai could each eat one. Ow! Ao Daisai, are we going to eat a warthog? The size difference between a wild boar and a warthog was quite big. Ao Daisai narrowed its eyes and looked around. It probably did not even see where the warthog was. Oh, that little thing? Is it enough to eat? The white lion, who had been hunting large prey all its life, obviously did not like the little piglet. Warthog, I'm an adult. Thank you. I'm just this big. Eat it or not. The unlucky cheetah was running for its life. As the most miserable cat on the grassland, it was not the first time it was being chased by its prey, and it would not be the last time. The cheetah, who was used to being beautiful and strong, looked back from time to time to see where the warthog was chasing. When it looked, it found that the warthog was right behind its butt. The sharp horn of the warthog's mouth could hang on its butt. This was very dangerous. However, this was not the most dangerous thing. The cheetah looked forward by chance and found that two lions were running towards it. They were very fast and did not look like proper lions at all. It was stunned. It did not remember that lions on the grassland could run so fast. The cheetah, who had a strong desire to survive, controlled its slender legs and desperately changed its direction, looking for a chance of survival. After it ran away, it found that the two lions had already chased after the warthog. Their target was not the poor cheetah. That was close. The cheetah stood in place and stretched its neck to watch the show. It opened its mouth and panted. Then, it watched the lions hunt the warthog. It could not take its eyes off it. Maybe it was thinking, damn, lions are so powerful, but they still steal my prey all day. Is there any justice? The two lions each took down a warthog within 5 minutes and showed off in front of the cheetah. It could be said that they had cleared the name of the lions. Killing a warthog was just a warm-up exercise for Ao Daisai. He picked up the dead warthog and walked leisurely to Xiao Qixi. The photographer in the distance casually took a picture and immediately got a perfect lion-themed poster. It was a rare white lion. They have to eat together. The single dog is envious. Looking at the two kings of the grassland who were intimate with each other before eating, the humans who worked every day and could not talk to each other were envious. Xiao Qixi used its claws to touch the warthog that Ao Daisai had killed. It felt that this warthog was thinner, so it sneakily switched the two and left the fatter one for Ao Daisai. The whole world touched. Yolashanda is so good to her partner. Ao Daisai, you guys are thinking too much. He just doesn't want to eat fat. Of course, Ao Daisai would not complain. He would not even analyze Xiao Qixi's actions. He would gladly accept it if the other party gave it to him. It was already a shocking move to leave something that he thought was good for Xiao Qixi to eat. On the grassland, it seemed that only the lions raised by Yolashanda had such a habit. The other lions were quite sensitive to food. Thanks to the two lions, the cheetah happily went to find the lone warthog. Not long after, it returned with the warthog in its mouth, but it did not dare to stay near the lions because it was afraid that the lions would snatch its food. The leopard on the tree in the distance watched this scene and did not dare to act rashly. Otherwise, it would not mind snatching the cheetah's warthog. Or perhaps this leopard was guarding here with the intention of being the oriole behind. It did not know that its plan had been disrupted by the sudden appearance of the two lions. It bared its teeth. It seemed that it could only hunt by itself. After eating the warthog, the water buffaloes passed by. Xiao Qixi and Ao Daisai licked their mouths and continued upstream. Before the sky turned dark, they found a relatively clean section of the river to drink water. The plants on the banks of the river were still green. It seemed that the river would not stop flowing even in November. Xiao Qixi stood on the shore and looked down at the furry reflections of the two lions. She felt so happy. The happiness of animals was too easy to satisfy. As long as they had food, drink, and companions by their side, it seemed to be enough. However, these things that seemed easy to obtain might have to be achieved by wild animals with all their might. The photographers realized that the two lions that had left their pack were as free as the wind. They were no longer bound to one place as their home. They went wherever they went, as if they wanted to finish walking this grassland that was not necessarily beautiful, but was definitely worth appreciating. This was a very romantic behavior. The people who paid attention to their wandering lives expressed their thoughts after noticing this action. Some people felt that this was a gift from the white lion to Yolashanda. After all, Yolashanda was already more than 8 years old this year. Their time together was fleeting. Why did she choose to travel with Ao Daisai? It was because Xiao Qixi woke up in Ao Daisai's arms one day and suddenly felt that her mission had been completed. Guarding a territory might be the mission of a lion, but it was definitely not Xiao Qixi's mission. Thus, she whimpered and begged Ao Daisai to travel with her. There was no need. There was really no need. If she wanted to go somewhere, would Ao Daisai not follow her? Regardless of the territory, it was feasible to wander on the grassland. First, they were strong and not afraid of encountering danger. Speaking of which, since the death of the four brothers, the number of lions on the grassland had increased, and there were fewer unnatural deaths. Second, when they passed by the territories of other lions, perhaps because their attitude was calm and they did not show any aggression, many lions would not conflict with them. Occasionally, there would even be lions chasing after them to express their goodwill. Their expressions seemed to say, "Brother, hey, don't go. Why don't you have a meal before you go?" Ao Daisai was not angry at the lions who expressed their goodwill. He was just too lazy to pay attention to them, and usually did not give them a look. However, meeting a lion who expressed goodwill to Xiao Qixi was undoubtedly the same as poking a hornet's nest. It was terrible. Ao Daisai had to stay and beat the lion up. Sometimes, Ao Daisai chased after his love rival and disappeared, leaving Xiao Qixi alone in the same place. It was very boring and at the same time, very speechless. Seriously, could this boyfriend be more reliable? What if a group of ferocious lions came at this time? Or maybe Ao Daisai knew that he could climb trees and was not worried Golden Handsome waited obediently in the same place. Sometimes he would meet other lions in this territory, but usually they would not be ferocious towards Xiao Qixi. At most, they would chase him away in a normal way. Because Xiao Qixi did not provoke the lions, he was just passing by. "Lion, roar, are you coming or not? It's fine if you don't want to leave. I'll ask later. Or maybe I'll stay nearby and keep an eye on them." I've even seen lions with prey in their mouths and eating at the side. Who are you trying to tempt? It's quite cute. Xiao Ingjun. Who can say that lions are not good-looking dogs? Unfortunately, he already had a boyfriend. Even his favorite zebra legs could not tempt him, who was responsible for relationships. He thought to himself, "Give up, Give up. My boyfriend will be back soon. If he sees you hanging, I'll beat you to death." The good-looking dog blinked as if to say, "Look at the handsome lion eating. Delicious. Damn, it's too greasy, too greasy." Xiao Qixi could not stand this guy. In order to prevent Ao Daisai from coming back and killing, Xiao Qixi quickly followed the scent and took the initiative to go to Ao Daisai's side. At the same time, he saved the lion that was being beaten up. Stop fighting, let's continue traveling." On the way with Ao Daisai, Xiao Qixi saw many wild animals, some of which he had never seen in his original territory. For example, the ostrich, which had the word bird in its name, but had extraordinary fighting power. If one were to ask how many animals on the grassland have been chased by ostrich, more than half of the small animals would raise their hands. Even the cheetahs were no exception. Cheetahs, what the F***CK. However, it was not wrong for them to be chased by ostrich. Usually, they were chased all over the place because they coveted the ostrich's meat. Yolashanda, who was using his eyes to record the grassland scenery, even encountered the endangered pangolin. The pangolin was showing off its scales by the roadside, and the smell it emitted attracted a large number of termites to eat. The two lions were very sensitive to smells. When they passed by, they could not help but choke and sneeze. The pangolin was disturbed and quickly shrank into a ball to ward off the danger. Because its scales were very hard, it was not easy for ordinary animals to bite through its scales. Otis would be crazy to try a snack with such a strong body odor. Furthermore, with Xiao Qixi eyeing it covetously, this pangolin would not be touched by them no matter what. However, this was the first time he had encountered such a strange thing. It looked like a ball. Ao Daisai might have thought of the rubber ball that had once floated on the sea, but he still pulled it, as if he wanted to see if Xiao Qixi liked it. "Xiao Qixi, it's still okay to roll twice. Just treat it as collecting protection fees." The two unscrupulous lions played with the pangolin ball by the roadside for a while before leaving in satisfaction. There were still many rare wild animals in Africa, such as giant antelopes, sword antelopes, and so on. They also saw jumping rabbits and big frogs. These were animals that appeared during the rainy season. The rainy season in the distance had a beautiful and magnificent scenery, especially by the lake. The picturesque green water plants and the gentle and delicate mountains actually had a hint of Jiangnan's scenery. It was too beautiful, Yolashanda exclaimed. TV rarely filmed grasslands in this season, but this scene had also appeared in many nature documentaries. Xiao Qixi had an impression of this scenery. Unlike Xiao Qixi, who made a fuss over nothing, Ao Daisai might not have a concept of whether the surrounding environment was beautiful or not. He only had a concept of whether it was suitable for survival. However, it could not be said that he did not put in effort to enjoy this trip. Presumably, staying by the little bear's side and welcoming the sunrise, sunset, and change of seasons together was the greatest happiness Ao Daisai could feel. Objectively speaking, this should be the happiest time for Ao Daisai. Because his partner was young and strong, he did not have to raise Ao Daisai carefully like he did when he was Little Bear. They could hunt together, climb small hills together, and retreat together when they encountered danger. It was the best time. Of course, there were also countless small worries. Xiao Qixi wanted to eat frogs, but it was difficult. Ao Qixi, who was only interested in large prey, could only wait by the lake at night to catch frogs. Xiao Qixi, I don't want to eat frogs. I just think that the frogs that rise up like rubber balls are very fun. After 3 times, Ao Daisai knew that Little Bear only treated the frogs as toys, so he was very happy to bring one back for him from time to time. It was worth mentioning that the frogs that Xiao Qixi played with were all eaten by Ao Daisai in the end. It was a perfect example of the principle that no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat. Xiao Qixi, the frogs are so cute. Why would he eat them? Perhaps for Ao Daisai, as long as it was caught with effort, why wouldn't he eat it? Perhaps this was the difference between wild animals and non-wild animals. The author has something to say. Here, allow me to update 2 or 3 chapters. Please continue to support Xiao Sure Sure. Woo. Chapter 76. It started to rain at night. Small raindrops hit the surface of the lake, and the entire lake rippled in the night. Then, the rain became heavier and heavier. The white lion, who was waiting by the lake to catch frogs, stood up and shook off the water on its mane. It turned around to look for the other lion sleeping under a nearby tree. The other lion was also awake, or perhaps he was not sleeping soundly at all, because the frogs by the lake were really noisy. As for why he did not leave, it was probably because it was very hot here. It felt like a free concert, and it seemed that Ao Daisai had fallen in love with the taste of frogs. That's right, frogs were also on the lion's menu. When there was not much food, they were frog killers and would even chase after turtle doves. Seeing Ao Daisai trotting back with a white-bellied frog in its mouth, Xiao Qishi thought to herself, "Boyfriend, although you look terrible hiding from the rain, you look so handsome catching frogs." The thin canopy could not block the heavy rain. At this rate, it should be a fierce rainstorm. The two lions stared at each other under the canopy for a while, then decided to go out and find a place to stay in the rain. Ao Daisai took the lead and walked very quickly, as if he already had a plan where to go. The big yellow lion, who was screaming in the rain, drooped his eyebrows and followed his boyfriend's steady figure closely in the rain. He felt that as long as he followed his boyfriend, everything would be solved. The rain gave the poor frog a chance of survival. The frog in the lion's mouth opened its mouth to drink water. Obviously, Ao Daisai had not bitten the little bear's toy to death. Not long after, the gentle and patient white lion found a shelter from the rain. The two of them shook off the rainwater that accumulated on their bodies outside, then walked in with their tails up. Ah, what a strong wind, what a heavy rain. Xiao Qishi, who came in before the rainstorm, lay at the entrance of the cave and looked at the weather outside. Ao Daisai let go and put the frog in front of the other party. The frog, who was free, immediately jumped, but before it could escape, it was held down by a big yellow paw. The frog's pitiful cries made Xiao Qishi feel very embarrassed. He immediately let go of his paw. Sorry, the instinct of a cat was that it could not accept a small animal escaping in front of it. The big yellow cat controlled his hand, but he forgot that there was a big white cat next door. The other party was also a cat with bad hands, and it could not watch the frog go home. Ao Daisai's paw down. The frog was probably half dead. It was too pitiful. Xiao Qishi could not take it anymore. She thought about it and used her claws to pry Otis's claws away so that the frog could live. If the other party was lucky, he could return to the lake in the heavy rain, and Xiao Qishi believed that if he said he did not want to play, the frog's fate would be to be eaten by Ao Daisai. Sob, I'm sorry, frog. I don't think I can save you. I hope you can reincarnate well in your next life and not be a frog anymore, Xiao Qishi thought. Under Ao Daisai's playful play, Xiao Qishi's eyelids gradually became heavy. He did not know if frog was eaten by Ao Daisai in the end, but it probably was. Bless the frog that became a star. When they woke up, it was still raining and the sky was not bright, but their wet fur had been dried by their body heat. Their own body heat and the other party's body heat. In this relatively comfortable temperature, the temperature in the cave was warmed by the body heat of the two lions. Xiao Qishi yawned and leaned his head on the other lion's sturdy back. He felt the other lion's muscles tremble a few times. It was an instinctive reaction. They slept again. This time, Ao Daisai woke up first. He slowly opened his blue eyes. Upon closer inspection, there seemed to be a layer of desire in them. It seemed that the comfortable environment and the body heat of his partner made him go into heat. After all, Ao Daisai was a lion in his prime. At this time, he should be in the pride with the lionesses, not wandering with another lion. But it did not matter. He could still be satisfied. Xiao Qishi opened his eyes and found Ao Daisai on his back. Ao Daisai's head was rubbing against his cheek, and his body was pressing down bit by bit until they were tightly pressed together. Although he was already used to having an intimate relationship with Ao Daisai, Xiao Qixi was still afraid for the first few seconds of acceptance. Fortunately, as a wild beast, the other party had an extreme gentleness to him from the bottom of his bones and was exceptionally protective of him. Yolashanda, who had just woken up, snorted coquettishly. "It's so early in the morning, no. Ao Daisai, who was covering his partner's back, was already very gentlemanly. He was not anxious the moment he came up. Instead, he used a gentle signal to invite the other party to accept this joy of rain and clouds. However, from the looks of the current situation, the other party was unwilling. Ao Daisai looked a little helpless. Undoubtedly, he loved Xiao Qixi to the bone, but his age and nature could not be ignored. According to the data of the other lions, he had already asked for too little. Ao Daisai rubbed his chin against Xiao Qixi's forehead even more gently, trying to obtain the other party's consent through this comfort. Fortunately, Xiao Qixi did not really reject him. He was just habitually being mischievous. Woo-woo, Yolashanda agreed. Then, she shyly swung her tail to the side to facilitate Ao Daisai's actions. In fact, many male lions were just putting on an act and would not really unite. Compared to the union between male and female, it was more like a ceremony. However, Ao Daisai and Xiao Qixi were truly united. If Yolashanda was a female, the cute little lions would probably have given birth to several litters of cubs. Ao Daisai looked very happy to receive his partner's permission, and what happened next was very familiar to him. After being together for so long, he already knew how to please himself and his partner under him. Xiao Qixi wondered if this Ao Daisai had become a spirit. He always felt that Ao Daisai was very smart and always gave him the feeling that their thoughts were actually equal. It seemed that their lack of intelligence did not affect their love. Woo 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 woo. Yolashanda's soft and emotional sounds echoed in the cave. He was probably the only animal in this grassland who could pinch his voice and act coquettishly. The other voice that was entwined with his was deep and deep. It was undeniable that when it was fierce, it could scare away animals within a radius of 10 miles. However, at this time, it was very sexy and gentle. However, Ao Daisai did not make much noise. Most of the time, the only thing that could be heard was the lion's heavy breathing. At more than 700 kilograms, Ao Daisai was at his peak. Yolashanda was so stressed that he wanted to shout for Ao Daisai to stop. Unfortunately, he was also at the breeding age and could not withstand Ao Daisai's crazy flirting. An hour later, the sky was bright and the rain stopped. The lion's cave finally regained its peace. Oh no, there were also two distinct breathing sounds. The frequency of their breathing had a hint of contentment and laziness. The brave white lion seemed to have a smile in its eyes. As it breathed, it licked Xiao Qixi's face from time to time, making Xiao Qixi feel very embarrassed. Ah, how could there be such a lustful lion? Xiao Qixi could not resist the temptation from his expression to his voice, as well as the touch of his white satin. She wanted to sleep with this lion so badly that she wanted to sleep with him. However, the consequence of not being able to resist the temptation was that her legs and waist were sore. Sop, 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 sop. He felt like he had encountered a fake lion. It didn't make sense at all. However, we can't deny that the process was very pure. Whether it was a human or a lion, one had to be honest. After sleeping with Ao Daisai contentedly, Xiao Qixi felt both physically and mentally full. She really wanted to go out and do whatever she wanted. After resting for a while, Yellow and White got up and stretched before walking out of the cave one after another. The sun shone through the clouds, and the remaining water droplets on the plants refracted a beautiful, colorful shimmer. The chirping of insects and birds could be heard all over the place. Xiao Qixi's claws stepped on the wet grass. As expected, most of them were wet. He shook his claws in disgust and complained. Of course, Ao Daisai could not understand. He could only guess that it was a small emotion. The other party walked in front unhurriedly. There were dangers hidden in the grass during the rainy season. Even lions had to be wary. Ao Daisai was used to being first. This way, he could solve problems first. The main reason was that Xiao Qishi was stupid. Sometimes, he did not even know that he had stepped on a snake. Fortunately, it was not a poisonous snake, and the other party did not bite him. It seemed that snakes were more afraid of lions. On the way, Xiao Qishi licked his lips. It had been a day and a night since his last meal. In addition, he had rolled the sheets intensely at dawn. He was very hungry. Roar. I want to eat, Ao Daisai. I want to eat. Roar. The big white lion did not even turn its head, as if to say, got it. Be quiet. You're a little noisy. Of course, this was Xiao Qishi's own interpretation. He was so dramatic that he exploded on the spot. F***CK. When you're intimate, you call me little darling. When I ask you for meat, you despise me for being noisy. Scumbag lion. Ao Daisai led the way attentively. The fur on his body was also a little wet. From time to time, he could be seen shaking his body gently. The cameraman hiding nearby only felt that the white lion looked extremely beautiful walking on the green grass. Yes, the cameraman followed these two romantic lions all the way here. It was very difficult to follow them, but it seemed to be worth it. The journey of the lions would be a documentary that would heal people's hearts. The story of Yolashanda and the white lion was heartwarming and full of positive energy. They made people feel love. The love between families, the love for strangers of the same kind, the love of love, and Yolashanda's love for nature. People always felt that he was admiring the beautiful scenery of this world. How magical was this? However, this was not the only miracle that happened to Yolashanda. As another legendary lion, the white lion was also very touching. He loved Yolashanda very passionately. People watched him take care of Yolashanda every day. Just like many years ago, Yolashanda was biased towards him, who was the most difficult to raise among the 5 brothers. This was a rather perfect and happy story. There were no regrets at all. One rainy season and half a dry season was enough time for Xiao Qishi and Yolashanda to walk around the grassland. However, they had not left the central area yet. They would set off next year. Xiao Qishi missed the lions in his territory a little, so he went around in a circle and returned. On the way, they revisited their old places and returned to the place where they had picked up the 5 brothers. Xiao Qishi was filled with emotions, but he did not know if Ao Daisai still remembered such a young memory. Did he? Ao Daisai stood in front of the nest where Xiao Qishi had lived, acting as if he still remembered because he lowered his head to sniff the undamaged stone wall. This scene was quite heartwarming. Let's go. We'll just take a look. Xiao Qishi thought to himself, do you still want to stay? They followed the path they had taken when they were young and walked this path of survival that was once filled with danger. The difference was that they had been hiding back then, but now they were swaggering and not afraid at all. Just like that, they passed by the alliance that Xiao Qishi was born in, the Magic Red Alliance. Many years had passed, but this alliance was still doing well. Perhaps it was because it was constantly replenishing new blood. An alliance that was willing to tolerate would probably attract many good lions to help. A few days later, Xiao Qishi and Ao Daisai returned to the territory of Melissa's pride. The smell of the 4 little ones was no longer strong here, leaving only the smell of the Yuanzi and Changfeng. Clearly, the 4 little ones did not accept the arrangements of their elders and were still wandering outside. The Yuanzi and Changfeng had taken over this territory. Xiao Qishi and Ao Daisai returned to the base camp with ease. They had not seen each other for a year. When they walked over from afar, the lions resting on a pile of rocks raised their heads and looked at them. There were also subadult cubs who had grown up. They kept looking around, as if they were confirming if the lion that had returned was the one in their memories. Xiao Qishi was filled with joy. Hello, I'm back. The Yuanzi and Changfeng, who were sleeping, did not even know that the lion was approaching. Of course, they were too familiar with the smell of Xiao Qishi and Ao Daisai. In their subconscious, they would not treat Xiao Qishi and Ao Daisai as threats. Xiao Qishi, who was tired from walking, fell beside the Yuanzi and pressed down on him evilly. The UNZ was sleeping soundly and immediately snorted unhappily. He even wanted to open his mouth and bite the bastard lion that was scratching his dreams beside him. In the end, just as he narrowed his eyes and sensed a familiar aura, the UNZ immediately let out a roar and started acting coquettishly with Xiao Qixi like a dog. Cheng Feng, who was sleeping beside them, was quickly woken up by their movements. When he saw his familiar brother, he stood up happily and surrounded him. Ao Daisai also gave him face. He bumped heads with his brother, whom he had not seen in a year. Then he stood together and seemed to be telling him what had happened in the past year. Compared to their calmness, Xiao Qixi and a UNZ rolled until their partners were almost jealous before they stopped. Roar! I missed you so much. There was an agitated paw on Big UNZ's head. It was Alisanda's paw. If it wasn't for Alisanda, Big UNZ wouldn't have obediently laid on the ground and let him pat its head. Roar! The UNZ looked like he wanted to pounce on Xiao Qixi again, but perhaps he was afraid that Do would teach him a lesson, so he still moved his mouth and not his hands. After Xiao Qixi finished talking to him, she went to pounce on Cheng Feng. This steady and gentle lion seemed to laugh a few times. No matter what, Xiao Qixi felt that if he laughed. Cheng Feng was still the best. He swept away his drowsiness and went out to hunt for his travel-worn relatives. His wife also went out with him. Sob, sob, sob. Looking at their backs, Xiao Qixi was so touched that she wanted to cry. It was so good to be home. Ao Daisai's way of meeting boss was to fight fiercely. He had taken advantage of the little bear just now, and now he was going to fight back. The UNZ. Roar, don't come back next time. You're not welcome. The naive boss might not understand. In this lifetime, he would never be able to see the scene of Xiao Qixi returning alone because Do would definitely be with her. However, a few years later, he might be able to see the scene of Do returning alone. Boss and Fifth were sparring, and Xiao Qixi was teasing the cubs. Do you still remember me? It's me. The lionesses, who had a deep memory of these two lions, lay on the ground calmly. When they were tired, they lay down and slept. Obviously, they were not worried about the safety of the cubs at all. After all, most of the time, it was Xiao Qixi who helped them look after the cubs. The initially timid little lion cub, after Xiao Qixi's teasing and acting cute, seemed to have confirmed his identity and started to play. After returning after a year, Xiao Qixi was tired from playing with the cubs. She lay on the ground and consciously counted the lions in the territory. Including those who went out to hunt, not a single one was missing. The UNZ and Cheng Feng were so powerful. Xiao Qixi felt honored. He waited happily in the territory. Not long after, Cheng Feng and the lionesses brought back prey. It was Xiao Qixi's favorite zebra. He was touched again. Sob, sob, sob. However, he did not think too much because everyone liked to eat zebra. Zebra was so delicious. Who could reject zebra? Tremor. After the subadult cubs' appetites grew, the food in the pride was quite tight. Now that there were two more lions, Xiao Qixi and Ao Daisai were very conscious and did not eat too much. Anyway, the two of them usually ate very much because Ao Daisai only liked to hunt large prey. They really could not finish it. If they could not finish it, they would benefit a group of wandering lions that could not feed themselves. Xiao Qixi, the #1 philanthropic lion on the grassland. There is a saying that if one had to evaluate the 3 good lions on the grassland, Xiao Qixi felt that he could do it. Of course, Ao Daisai also won an award this time. That night, Xiao Qixi and Ao Daisai did not leave. They stayed in the base camp where they had lived for many years and relived their old dreams. Oh no, they climbed the familiar slope again. The next morning, they did not freeload off the pride's food. The two of them bade farewell to the pride and left. They would come back to freeload in the future if they had the chance. The pride watched the two of them slowly walk towards the north, where Third and Fourth lived. Coincidentally, at sunset, the brothers Purple Lightning and Green Frost were patrolling the territory. Hearing their roars, Xiao Qixi also ran over while roaring. Love goes both ways. When Purple Lightning and Green Frost heard Xiao Qixi's voice, They ran over without hesitation. Then, the two of them met, fought affectionately, and rolled on the ground. It seemed that only in this violent way could they fully express the joy of meeting each other. Third and fourth realized that Do would pounce on whoever pounced on Xiao Qixi. Third and fourth probably had the same thought as Boss. Don't come back, you're not welcome. Ao Daisai did not care what his brothers thought and suppressed them mercilessly. Even rational humans could not control their jealousy, let alone a wild beast. Not convinced, it seemed that he could only hold it in. Of course, he was not welcome. It was just a joke. Brotherhood was still connected. Roar. Have you eaten? Hungry. Roar. I've finished eating. Xiao Qixishi's joy of seeing his family immediately decreased by one. What a realistic lion. However, purple lightning and green frost did not mistreat him. When they encountered prey on the way to patrol, purple lightning took the lead to hunt for him to eat. As for Ao Daisai, he seemed to think that there was no need to do anything if he could freeload. Ao Daisai and Xiao Qixi monopolized one prey. When they were full, they dragged the rest back to the territory for the pride to eat as supper. Under the temptation of food, the subadult lion cubs were affectionate with Xiao Qixi from the start, perfectly demonstrating the truth of the saying that whoever had food was the father. The number of lions in the pride of third and fourth was not small either. There was even a new litter of 3 cubs born this year. That's great. Xiao Qixi was overjoyed. Because of this litter of cubs, he shamelessly stayed in third and fourth territory for a few days. However, it was not to freeload. He just wanted to hunt and feed the cubs to fulfill his duty as an elder. Because of his good health, Yulashanda was still very good at hunting. With the skillful cooperation of the 3 Norman brothers, it was not a problem to hunt a big water buffalo. Finally, Yulashanda ate a big water buffalo again, which he had not eaten in a long time. It tasted as good as ever. The cameramen who returned to the starting point with them were quite touched. Yulashanda was participating in hunting and feeding the cubs at such an old age. His love seemed to overflow from the screen. He was even more affectionate than the cubs' biological father. The 3 adult lions, who were once held in the palm of Yulashanda's hands like pearls and treasures, occasionally glanced to the side. No one knew what they were thinking. Perhaps they were recalling their childhood. Perhaps they were jealous of the cubs that Yulashanda doted on, or perhaps they were not thinking of anything at all. However, it was certain that Ao Daisai would be jealous. For the sake of the cubs' physical and mental health, before Ao Daisai could roar at the cubs, the quick-witted little bear immediately tore off a thick piece of beef and stuffed it into his boyfriend's mouth. Reality proved that Ao Daisai was as easy to coax as ever. Indeed, after Ao Daisai received a piece of beef and a kiss, his beautiful blue eyes immediately glowed faintly. He was no longer the angry sign that scared the cubs. However, it was hard to say whether he was really easy to coax. That night, in front of Lao San and Lao Si, Ao Daisai took his partner to climb a small slope. They had fun nearby for the entire night before resting. All the lions in the pride could smell the smell and hear the commotion. Damn, what was the difference between this and social death? Bastard Ao Daisai, super annoying. The author has something to say. Ao Daisai is good. Even if Xiao doesn't want it, many people do. Chapter 77. Animals were free and unrestrained. They lived in the wild, swallowing the wind and drinking the rain and sleeping in the open. They seemed to have no concept of time. That night, the 2 lions made out with their favorite partners. They temporarily abandoned their sense of shame and indulged. In the blink of an eye, another endless night had passed. It was said that lions in the natural world could make out with their partners for a few days and nights without getting tired. He only asked for Ao Daisai from his partner for one night. He could be considered a gentleman in the lion world. It seemed that he always stopped when it came to such things. After being satisfied, Xiao Qixi didn't even want to twitch his ears. So what? But I'm still very tired. In this regard, Xiao Qishi really didn't think that Ao Daisai was very gentlemanly, did he? In his mind, staying up all night was indulgence, and staying up past 3 in the morning was staying up all night. After becoming a lion, Xiao Qishi couldn't even count how many nights he had stayed up. In short, it was a lot. There were no black circles on his face, and he still looked so handsome. He was purely a natural beauty. In the comfortable and quiet morning, the golden handsome man tilted his head, half asleep and half awake. He lamented in his heart that the nightlife had caused the lion to fall, and in the next, he lamented that time flew by like an arrow. She wondered what Otis, the handsome guy next door, was thinking. Was he reflecting on his mistake for causing the death of his partner? Xiao Qishi squinted his small eyes and saw the other party looking up at the golden light in the sky. His side profile was so handsome. The photographer had taken so many photos of Ao Daisai. As the other party's favorite, he couldn't accept that he couldn't have just one. He saw Ao Daisai squinting his eyes 45 degrees and looking into the distance. His expression was also quite emotional. Perhaps the other party also knew that a long time had passed. So Ao Daisai also had the concept of the passage of time. Xiao Qishi was very curious. For the 10,001st time, he wanted to chat with Ao Daisai and talk about life. Of course, Ao Daisai had the concept of the passage of time. In fact, he was far more sensitive to the changes in his surroundings, as well as the changes in himself and his partner. However, Ao Daisai wouldn't read too much into these perceptions. He was always doing what he could every day, so he didn't have as many thoughts as the little bear in his arms. For example, at this very moment, Ao Daisai was calmly looking down and licking his sleepy Qishi. From his satisfied expression, it was obvious that he was enjoying this moment of happiness. Looking at Ao Daisai's affectionate and focused eyes, Xiao Qishi giggled in her heart and went to sleep. The two carefree lions lazed in bed until evening and had no intention of getting up. It could be said that they were lazy to a certain extent. Xiao Qishi was quite embarrassed. After all, his ideal farewell gift was a delicious zebra. Unfortunately, he did not see it around. They were probably moving farther away. Yolashanda, who did not know that meat was expensive, was worried. Would the pride dislike such a shabby gift? It turned out that his worries were unnecessary. The pride was very happy to receive this gift and invited them to eat together. However, they were already preparing to leave. This time, it was no longer leaving without saying goodbye like in the morning. The two lions used their roars to reject the invitation of their relatives, indicating that they were going home. Let's meet again in the future. Purple Lightning and Xing Shuang followed behind their younger brother and the lion who had brought them up to send them off for a while until the two figures disappeared into the bushes and went north. The journey home was long. After circling around the grassland and visiting all their relatives, Little Bear Qiao finally returned to his kennel. Oh no, lion's den. The two of them walked around and discovered that no wandering lions had invaded this place while they were away. Why was that? When they were patrolling the territory, they smelled Purple Lightning and Qing Shuang's scent. Ah, so those two brothers were watching over their home from time to time while they were traveling. I had to admit that they were really good brothers of the grassland. Xiao Qishi felt a warm feeling in his heart. He guessed that Ao Daisai, who was sniffing out his brother's scents and strengthening himself, felt the same way. Ao Daisai, who was probably thanking his brothers in his heart, left behind his own urine to show that he was back. The lions around him all behaved themselves. The widow of the Northern Alliance next door seemed to still be living next door. It was a new year, and they had welcomed a new guardian lion. Did that mean that the cubs might be dead already? This guess made Xiao Qishi a little sad. How should he put it? Seriously speaking, he was also responsible for the deaths of the cubs. If they hadn't killed the cubs' father, their fates might have been better. Because of this, Xiao Qishi's mood continued to be low for several days. Ao Daisai was worried that he might be sick. Fortunately, Ao Daisai soon discovered that Yolashanda could eat, sleep, and act spoiled. It didn't seem like he was sick. Was he bored? There was nothing new in the territory, and the outside world was more exciting. The young and strong Ao Daisai might have yearned for the outside world just like the little bear, but he was limited in his ability to express himself. He didn't have the consciousness to communicate whether he wanted to go on a journey again. However, Ao Daisai was already very good. He knew that Yolashanda was bored and wanted to play. One night, he brought a grass-colored jumping rabbit over. This was a new toy for Yolashanda. It didn't squawk, looked boring, and smelled a little. He deliberately pretended to be ugly, and Ao Daisai did not look cool at all. No, what was he doing now? He had not achieved his goal yet. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Xiao Qixi continued to cry. There were no toys or cubs to play with. There was a group next door, but they were not his. Furthermore, it would not be easy to play with them when they grew up, right? He wanted to go out and play. He wanted to go out and play. After a round of crying, when he walked out of the territory tomorrow, Ao Daisai would understand what his actions last night meant. The next time he cried and made a scene, Ao Daisai would immediately get it. Who didn't call her a master at teaching her boyfriend? Yes, the next day, little bear Xiao happily ran out of the territory. Ao Daisai got it, so he wanted to go out and play. What was there to cry about? Would he still not agree? Even if he wanted his life, there was nothing to hesitate about. According to Ao Daisai's usual behavior, there was nothing to hesitate about. Perhaps Ao Daisai was also very interested in the wonderful world outside. He walked briskly, as if he was walking on the wind. However, the purpose of his trip seemed to be different from Yolashanda's. Yolashanda wanted to see more sceneries with Ao Daisai, listen to more sounds of nature, and leave more footprints of the two of them. At the same time, it would also enrich the cameraman's camera. Ao Daisai was different. He liked to see the lively and energetic little bear playing happily everywhere. Those ordinary sceneries that he could not appreciate also became beautiful because of his partner's figure, making him unable to take his eyes off her. Hence, the two handsome men, who were unwilling to be left out, embarked on a journey together again when the next rainy season arrived. When a photographer realized that they were preparing to tour the grasslands for the second time, his heart could not help but skip a beat. Was this suitable? Indeed, Yolashanda was already 10 years old this year. As a wild lion, if the environment was good, he could at most live for another 3 to 4 years. This was the best situation. The photographer, who had deep feelings for Yolashanda, hoped that Yolashanda would stay in the territory and live well. However, from Yolashanda's point of view, this lion who liked to see sceneries and explore new things, after surviving the first half of his life taking care of children, started his own journey of happiness with his partner. It seemed to be far more interesting than being grounded in the territory. Then, what reason was there not to wish them a happy journey? Hashtag the yellow and white lions started their second love journey around the grasslands. Hashtag the official account updated the video of Yolashanda and Ao Daisai walking into the distance. Coupled with the melodious and romantic violin music, it evoked the memories of countless people in love. Who would have thought that I would be envious of two lions in love, _. Chapter 78. In a situation where he could not communicate with his partner in detail, actions were indeed the vanguard of expression. Not long after, Xiao Qixi found a group of unlucky wildebeests nearby. He was very vigorous and performed a wonderful hunt alone in front of Ao Daisai and the photographer. The process of the hunt was so exciting that it made people hold their breaths and stare intently. Then, the other party's roar spread throughout the grassland, as if to say, "I'm fine. Don't go around telling people that I'm dying." Before Xiao Qixi threw the wildebeest over his shoulder, Ao Daisai thought that he was about to die, and even the photographer was worried that this lion, who was no longer participating in the hunt, had reached the end of its road. At this moment, the photographer was very happy. It was great that the 10-year-old Yolashanda still had such good fighting strength. Ao Daisai was also very happy to receive an unexpected gift. His round eyes were shining. Perhaps he did not expect to be able to eat the prey that Xiao Qixi hunted alone. On this day, Ao Daisai was as happy as a cub. His entire body was filled with happiness that could be seen with the naked eye. His feelings were so straightforward that Xiao Qixi sighed. Even if Ao Daisai was a ferocious beast when he loved you, he would definitely let you know how much he loved you. Ao Daisai gladly accepted Yulashanda's feeding and ate a lot. Then, the next day, he gave his partner a zebra in return to taste, although he did this almost every day. Lazy little bear, after showing off its fighting prowess, went back to living the life of being taken care of by its male friend with a clear conscience. After all, he felt that if he could not work hard, why should he work hard? Being able to live off a woman was also a skill, wasn't it? This time, the two of them planned to go to places that they had never been to before. Carpet walking meant that they had to pass through the territories of other lions. This was a decision that Ao Daisai was not very happy about, because he would always meet unfamiliar lions. Therefore, throughout the entire trip, Ao Daisai was either jealous or on the way to being jealous. Xiao Qixi did not want to be jealous either. He was trying his best to use his sensitive sense of smell to avoid other lions. The occasional fish that slipped through the net was just an accident. This trip took longer than the last time. For 2 whole years, Xiao Qixi and Ao Daisai went to almost every place that they could go, leaving behind a lot of good videos and photos. Cameraman Tool, Yulashanda, and White Lion's photography team seemed to be the most tiring team in the grassland. However, if they did not want to do this 007 job, there would be thousands of cameramen lining up behind them. In the past 2 years, it was not that they had not encountered very dangerous moments. In fact, they had encountered several dangerous situations. For example, Yulashanda had accidentally fallen into a deep pit. It was too deep and could not come up. Ao Daisai was anxiously circling around above. The ones above could not come down, and the ones below could not come up. There was nothing they could do. In this situation, if Xiao Qixi was a proper wild lion, he would most likely die in this pit. Fortunately, his bloodline was not pure, and he quickly thought of a way to use tools to get up. However, it took a lot of effort to order Ao Daisai to get the tools. The couple, who had never quarreled in most of their lives, almost broke down because of this matter. Thinking about it later, it was because everyone was anxious. When their emotions were unstable, they could not communicate no matter what. Of course, they would be angry. At that time, the cameraman who understood the situation was also very anxious. It seemed that the lions that had encountered similar situations in the past did not come up in the end. As bystanders, it could not help. They could only pray that the clever Yulashanda could think of a way to save herself. However, what they did not expect was that Yulashanda would not succeed in saving herself through her own wit. Instead, Yulashanda and White Lion would quarrel. Of course, it was Yulashanda's tone that was worse. White Lion was more anxious. The cameraman did not know whether to laugh or cry. Don't quarrel. Isn't the most important thing to do now is to get out of the pit? Fortunately, not long after, White Lion came back with tree branches and slowly filled up the pit. Yulashanda, who was at the bottom of the pit, was finally rescued. Otis was the main character in another accident. He was the big lion who was always scouting ahead. Once, he stepped into a swamp after the rain and lost one of his arms. Fortunately, Yulashanda discovered it early. He reacted very quickly and bit the back of Ao Daisai's neck, using all his strength to pull Ao Daisai up. The incident happened very suddenly, so Xiao Qixi did not feel that it was very dangerous at that time. It was only when she went to the river to wash her feet that she felt a lingering fear. What the F***CK? I almost lost Ao Daisai just now. Yulashanda, who had regained what she had lost, hurriedly threw herself into her boyfriend's arms. Sob, Ao Daisai, you almost died. Hugging his trembling partner, Ao Daisai blinked. His expression seemed to say, "Aren't you washing your feet? Yulashanda wants to hug?" All right. The gentle Mr. Lion placed his chin on his partner's head. Then let's hug first. The shallow water flowed past their furry feet, making a gurgling sound, just like the years they had spent together. The photographers, who had just eaten a ton of dog food after eating, burped together. Yulashanda was clearly so playful, but he could still discover that Ao Daisai was in danger immediately. Forget it, forget it. He was rushing to eat a ton of dog food every day. There were many accidents like this in the wild, but the two lions used their good luck and rich survival experience to resolve them one by one. The wandering life of the yellow and white lion quietly came to an end with a recording of frame by frame. Yulashanda played until he was 12 years old. There was no place on the grassland that he was unfamiliar with, but he did not want to go home. He felt that it did not matter. He just pretended that he had never been here. As long as his acting skills were good enough, he would not screw up. Big, handsome golden fur. Wow, this place is so beautiful. Wow, this place is so fun. Ao Daisai. Shall we continue wandering? The question was, would Ao Daisai accept such a low-tech trick? Obviously not. Ao Daisai, who was still very strong, stopped and looked at the familiar environment. He, who did not accept being fooled, seemed to remember that he had been to this place with the little bear before. Yes, after a while, he narrowed his eyes and smelled the scent of his partner who had peed on a tree root. He was sure that this was no longer a fresh scenery. All right, it's time to go home. Ao Daisai came over and used his face to nudge Yulashanda, who was lying on the ground and refusing to leave. He was very gentle. If Yulashanda still refused to leave, he would gently bite the other party's ear and urge in a low voice. Let's go home. No, no. Xiao Qishi shamelessly lay flat on the ground and slapped the ground with her tail. She looked like some dogs who lay down and refused to leave the moment they reached the entrance of the community. The big white lion squatted down dignified, clearly a little helpless, but he was not angry. Instead, he quietly looked at his coquettish partner with a watery gaze. Meeting his gaze, Xiao Qishi was embarrassed. She had been spoiled by Ao Daisai for the past 2 years and was too willful. Suddenly realizing that she should not have Xiao Qishi, she fell into deep self-reflection in a second. He decided to sleep and leave tomorrow. Ao Daisai did not disagree. The next day, he happily embarked on the return journey with Xiao Qishi. The outside world was very exciting. He had already seen and experienced it. The outside world was very dangerous. He could not let his Yulashanda continue wandering. The return journey was another long period of time. The grassland withered and flourished again. Xiao Qishi happily strolled on the grass and recited the sentence in her memory in her heart. The grass on the grassland withered and flourished with each passing year. The wildfire could not burn it down, but it grew again when the spring breeze blew. Although she was reluctant to end the romantic trip, she was full of anticipation when she thought of the relatives she had not seen in a long time waiting for her to return. Perhaps this was the meaning of traveling. They had places they wanted to go and places they could return to. When the two big lions came out, their footsteps were like the wind. They walked very fast, but when they went back, they became very slow because Alisanda could no longer run. In his memory, it was only yesterday that he performed the awesome shoulder throw. How could he be drooling at the flock of sheep so quickly? Fortunately, he had the powerful Ao Daisai by his side, allowing him to eat his fill every meal. On the return journey, Ao Daisai led Yulashanda. They did not jump into small ponds anymore. They only walked on flat roads and did not climb the piles of rocks. Even if the little bear wanted to climb, he would not let her. It would cause her to fall. Xiao Qishi rolled her eyes. Oh wow, such double standards? Rolling in bed is obviously more tiring than climbing the piles of rocks. Why can't you control your desires? Ao Daisai, who was ridiculed, felt wronged. In fact, he was already considered to be abstinent. About half a year ago, he no longer really had sex with Yulashanda. Usually, when he was in heat, he would just rub against Yulashanda's body. He did not go in. Unfortunately, Ao Daisai could not speak. He could only let his unreasonable partner discredit him. Along the way, Ao Daisai brought Yolashanda, who was getting more and more mischievous as he got older, back to their territory. Fortunately, the brothers were still very strong and did not let the territory be occupied by younger lions. The Norman brothers, who were already 11 years old, were still firmly guarding their territory and pride. It was a miracle. However, they no longer had the ability to reproduce and were about to leave the pride. Even if they did not leave voluntarily, they would be expelled by the pride. Actually, Xiao Qishi also wanted to visit his dear relatives on the way back like last time. But he was very sorry. He could not walk anymore. He was so tired. But it was okay. When he returned to the territory to rest for 10 days to half a month, he would definitely go out and visit them. Xiao Qishi thought ambitiously. After Ao Daisai returned to the territory, he immediately used a penetrating roar to inform everyone that they were back. The brothers in the nearby territory heard his roar and also raised their heads to roar. It seemed to be transmitted to the neighboring territory even further away. Just by listening to the roar, one could tell that they were no longer young. Yolashanda, whose voice no longer had the penetrating power, gave up on participating in this conversation. Cough, cough. He would go visit them directly another day. However, this idea was destined to only be a thought. After returning to the territory, Ao Daisai did not allow him to go out again. After a week of rest, Little Bear, who was full of energy again, immediately clung to Ao Daisai with all his might, trying to coax and pester him to reach his goal. Woo, 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 woo. He wanted to go out and find Purple Lightning and the others to wash his hair together. Eldest, second, third, and fourth. No, we don't want to. We can visit, but there's no need to wash our hair. There is a saying that the brothers hated washing their hair. Ever since they escaped from Yolashanda's clutches and lived independently, they had not taken the initiative to wash their hair. Of course, the rain did not count. That was a passive washing. In the end, Ao Daisai did not let Little Bear have his way. He seemed to be determined to let Xiao Qishi stay in the territory and live every day well. Perhaps it was a coincidence, but the humans realized that not long after Yolashanda and White Lion returned to the territory, the Norman brothers, who were staying in the other prides, left their original prides at almost the same time, because it was indeed time for them to leave. The lionesses and the subadult cubs did not react. They only looked at them quietly. After guarding the pride for many years, they had sent away a total of 3 batches of subadult lions. None of the lions that walked out from here came back to fight for the territory. They were all wandering outside and had their own prides. Big Yuanzi and Changfeng came to 3rd and 4th territory together. They looked at each other from afar and seemed to be communicating. In the end, Big Yuanzi roared impatiently. The cameraman could actually hear that he wanted to hurry up. Purple Lightning and Green Frost. The 2 brothers stared at their brothers that they had not seen for a long time. Then, they took a step forward and left the pride that they had guarded for many years without any reluctance. The 4 brothers gathered and came to Do and Yolashanda's territory. They walked naturally to the 2 big lions and lay down as if they were returning to their own home. The 6 lions gathered again, looking at eldest, second, third, and 4th, who had suddenly formed a team to visit him. Xiao Qishi was first stunned and kept blinking. Is this real? Why are they all here? Is it the new year today? He was so happy, but as he was happy, he wanted to cry. Woo, 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 what's wrong? Have they been chased out by the pride? That's right. The older lions are already infertile. The lionesses will not continue to let them stay in the pride to eat and drink for free. Xiao Qishi's heart ached for his treasures. The lionesses did not want them, but he wanted them. Yolashanda, who was slightly agitated, hugged his little lions intimately. He licked them one by one and kissed them one by one. Let them leave. This is our home. The 4 big lions that came back silently were like when they were young. They were lovey-dovey beside Yolashanda. Sometimes they would roll on all 4s, and sometimes they would growl and find fault with their brothers. This was a scene that the cameraman could not see in other prides. In the pride, the lions were the pillars and the mental support of all the members. How could they roll around and act coquettishly? They all look like they are at a funeral. As if sensing that they were leaving, the big cats softly purred. Xiao Qi, who felt that they were in pain, cried in his heart. Don't cry. Take good care of yourself. Not long after, Yulashanda fell asleep. Ao Daisai did not let go of the lively rabbit because Yulashanda wanted to play with it when he woke up. He lay down beside his partner, waiting for her to wake up before playing. The next day, the official website of the Six Lions Alliance announced that Yulashanda had passed away. The 5 brothers who were left behind slowly accepted this fact after a few days. Then, they roared sorrowfully the whole night. This was the funeral ceremony of the lions. At the end of the same year, among the 5 brothers who were not young anymore, the eldest brother was the first to pass away. Although he was not the one who was sad, he had accumulated some old injuries from years of fighting. He was the first to pass away in his later years. Looking back at Big Yuanzi's life, he did not have any regrets. Yulashanda doted on him so much. Then, the second and fourth brothers also passed away peacefully. Their 2 strong brothers took care of them in their later years, so that they did not go hungry until they left. The remaining 2 Lion Kings were of similar strength. They wanted to see who would take care of who in the end. Actually, people were very curious. White Lion loved Yulashanda so much, but why did Yulashanda's departure not make him lose confidence in life? Later on, they watched White Lion take care of his brothers one by one until they passed away. They suddenly understood. So that was the case. The reason why White Lion was not affected by the departure of his beloved was because he wanted to fulfill Yulashanda's wish. If one had to say what Yulashanda's wish was, it would definitely be the few lions he had raised on the grassland. They had not settled down in their later years. This was Yulashanda's wish that he could not let go of the most. If White Lion lost confidence in life, who would take care of these children for Yulashanda? The third brother, Purple Lightning, had never been close to Yulashanda, but this did not seem to be the truth. He also loved Yulashanda very much and seemed to want to take care of Yulashanda's most unforgettable matter for him. Therefore, both of them had the same wish. Neither of them wanted to leave this grassland full of memories and love first. It was quite dramatic. The 2 brothers who used to be at odds with each other actually relied on each other in their later years and walked through a period of peace. In the end, it was the 14th year of the Lion's encounter. The last time the human photographer took a picture of White Lion was around the beautiful lake. White Lion held a frog in his mouth and passed by the shore. The author has something to say. It's very difficult to write this chapter. My eyes are swollen, so I'm a little late. Love everyone. Also, please ask for the nutrient solution. Last month, everyone gave me more than 300,000 bottles of nutrient solution. Thank you very much. In order to repay everyone, I will add an update for every 50,000 bottles of nutrient solution filled this month. Other newborn baby killer whales are, of course, a blank piece of paper, but Ada's baby killer whale is not necessarily so. Maybe it will whine and act coquettishly as soon as it is born. After a few months of being half awake, Xiao Qi finally felt that she had enough sleep. Following a wave of uncomfortable pressure, she was pushed out of the warm space and into the sea. In the autumn, the Antarctic sea area was sunny. Through the shallow sea, the light shone on the newborn baby killer whale, making him see the light. Xiao Qi blinked his grape-like eyes and then saw a black and white behemoth. He was stunned for 2 seconds, and the word killer whale was about to come out of his mouth. It turned out to be a killer whale, the tyrant of whales. At this moment, Xiao Qi was afraid, because he didn't know what his identity was now. Would he be the killer whale's food? Polar bears and lions could still raise their claws to look, but this time they couldn't. No matter how hard Xiao Qi tried, he couldn't lift his pectoral fins in front of his eyes, because his eyes were in the front position under the eyelids, and the short pectoral fins couldn't reach them at all. After the big killer whale showed its strong and powerful tail in front of Xiao Qi, it turned around and revealed its lovely front. Oh, It's so cute. Xiao Qixi sucked the killer whale so much that he forgot about the danger of his life. It wasn't until the other side had come to him that he retreated with his skillful swimming skills. Of course, when he was a bear, he was a good swimmer and played in the water when he had nothing to do. The killer whale had to think twice if it wanted to chase him. Seeing that the newborn killer whale was swimming so old fox, the mother killer whale was probably stunned. At the same time, she was very anxious because the little killer whale couldn't stay in the sea for too long. He had to breathe on the surface of the sea immediately. After swimming for a while, Xiao Qixi felt that the oxygen in his lungs was running out, but this was not difficult for him. Polar bears also need to go up for air when diving, so he yelled and turned over to swim upstream. His tail, which used to be used to tread water, became a better water control tail, which was quite convenient. So in this life, he was a marine animal. What could it be? The little killer whale was so smart that the mother killer whale looked very anxious. She hurriedly went up from below and used her mouth to push the little killer whale upstream. Xiao Qixi felt that the mouth of the whale tyrant was just below her. She immediately swung her tail and swam faster, but after all, she was just born and her ability was limited. In the end, she was lifted out of the water by the killer whale. However, the imagined scene of being eaten or blown away did not happen. The big killer whale just lifted her up and took a breath. This is love for the little killer whale. Without the little killer whale, the relatives would not be so enthusiastic. In fact, killer whales can find food without the notification of relatives. They have echolocation systems and can determine the location and size of prey based on echolocation. Generally, they will not make mistakes. The newborn killer whale is like a piece of white paper, and they still have a lot to learn. Xiao Qixi is stronger than other little killer whales. He can adapt to seawater as soon as he is born. He can swim, breathe, and distinguish what can and can't be eaten. Therefore, he will never die because of swallowing a large piece of sponge in his stomach. After a week of drones, people got the information that the little killer whale was very healthy and lively. Whether they can see him again next time depends on God's will. The happy family took the little killer whale to hunt for food. The little killer whale is always protected by his mother on his pectoral fins. She takes him to swim and breathe. She takes care of him very, very carefully. Because she has experienced the pain of losing her son, she is afraid. Compared to the huge body of the adult female killer whale, Xiao Qixi's figure is only a small head, like a little pitiful. When the blood-related killer whales approached the prey and besieged the prey, the mother killer whale stayed nearby with Xiao Qixi. Therefore, he could not see the whole hunting scene, but he could hear a lot of movements, one after another. Sometimes, a group of killer whales can chase a large prey for more than 10 hours. For example, Australian killer whales chase blue whales and bow-headed whales very patiently. Killer whales in each region have different habits. Xiao Qixi is an Antarctic A-type killer whale. He is the second fattest killer whale in the killer whale species. He looks the most round and cute, has a mild temperament, and likes to hunt minke whales. His family members are obviously very strong. It took less than an hour to successfully capture the prey. The fat killer whale made a gentle sound in the sea, calling the family members in the distance to quickly bring the little killer whale over to eat. The blood of the prey spread in the sea, slowly turning from dark red to light red. This is a picture that Xiao Qixi has long been familiar with. He is not afraid. He saw 3 fat killer whales surrounding the prey and taking a bite, eating with relish. In order to prevent the prey from falling to the bottom of the sea, the killer whales will always push the prey up. This is a move they are very good at. The mother killer whale, Ada, is very hungry. It took her too much energy to give birth. In the face of the food hunted by her blood relatives, she eats a lot. In the group of killer whales, taking care of family members who can't hunt is their traditional virtue.